define who they are. I certainly have not allowed my new challenges to define me. This is not a situation I would have chosen to find myself in. I never thought that at my age and otherwise good health, something like PSP could, in the space of just over a year, me of my ability to speak, run, or dance and force me to stop doing the job that I love. I also never expected to be in a position to make history by being the first member to use an augmentative and alternative communication (AAC) device on the House floor. I used to be one of those people who hated the sound of my voice. When my ads came on TV, I would cringe and change the channel. But you truly don't know what you've got till it's gone, because hearing the new AI of my own voice for the first time was music to my ears. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard, and I cried tears of joy. I'm not going to sugarcoat the difficulties that I've faced the past year. But what has brought me a renewed sense of determination is the opportunity to use this unique platform to try to help others. The supportive messages I've received have been overwhelming, especially from those facing similar speaking or movement challenges who see someone like me, who just happens to be in the spotlight, persevere in the same ways that they are. I'm not doing it for praise or admiration, but I do hope that when people see me continuing to do all I can to keep living my life and doing this job I love as best I can, they understand and appreciate the courage, resilience, and spirit that so many Americans of differing abilities demonstrate each and every day. I hope I can be a voice, even an AI voice, for Americans facing accessibility and other disabilities, because too often people only see us for that disability, and in truth, we are so much more. Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in recognizing this Disability Pride Month and in celebrating the strength and perseverance of the disability community.
Washington Journal continues.
We're joined now via Zoom by Bishop William Barber. He wears a lot of hats. He's president of Repairs of the Breach, founding director of the Center for Public Policy and Public Theology at Yale. We call him Reverend. He's an author, and his latest book is entitled White Poverty: How Exposing Myths About Race and Class Can Reconstruct American Democracy. Reverend Barber, what got you interested in writing about white poverty in America?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And my editor, Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove, we've kind of been writing this book all our lives, but as we look at the reality of poverty in America now, over a third of Americans are unified by the reality of poverty and low wages. You're talking about 140 million poor and low-wage persons in this country. You're talking about over 58 to 60% of African Americans, which is 26 million. But then you're talking about 30% of white brothers and sisters, which is over 66 million, who are poor and or low wage, $500 away from economic ruin. And oftentimes what we see in the way we address poverty is mythology guiding our conversation rather than the truth. One of them is the mythology that poverty is not that big of an issue. If you look at the way the government tends to measure poverty, they say it's only 30-some million, but that's the better way to measure poverty than to look at who would be poor without extreme poverty without assistance is the better way in the measurement that must be used. Secondly, we tend to say that poverty is a Black issue. So most of the time we talk about it, you'll show a Black woman on welfare, which is racist toward Black people. But it dismisses tens of millions of white brothers and sisters who are poor and low wealth in this country. And we are united, by this poverty. The mythologies, for instance, that pale skin is a shared interest. The mythology that only Black folk want change in America. The mythology that poverty is only a Black issue. The mythology is that we can't overcome our division. We thought we had to write a book that challenges these mythologies and calls on the nation to stop ignoring over 140 million people, 43% of its adult population and 51% of children. We must face this issue and all of the people that are impacted by it. Lastly, because poverty now in this country is 800 people a day die from poverty and low wages. And that's 290-some thousand people a year. That's epidemic levels. If anything else was killing 800 people a day, we would be calling it an epidemic. And yet when it comes to poverty and low wages. We don't talk about it. We tend in the country to racialize it or diminish it, and it's time to face it in its fullness.
These myths about poverty in America, are these recent myths, or how long has this mythology about poverty in America been with us in this country?
Well, it has a long history. You know, back in the 60s, there was something developed called the White Southern Strategy. And part of that strategy was to turn Black and white people against each other. Because in 1965, at the end of the Selma to Montgomery March on the steps of the Alabama State House, Dr. King said that the greatest fear of the greedy oligarchy in this country is for the masses of poor Negroes and the masses of poor white people to come together and form a voting bloc that could fundamentally shift the economic architecture of the country. So there have been down through the years this attempt to ensure separation. One book called A Time of Illusion said that the goal was positive polarization, to split people, to cause, to say that Black poverty was the cause of personal morality and personal failure, and that white poverty was the cause of Black people getting things and brown people getting things that created their poverty. When in fact the oligarchy and the policies of the oligarchy were in fact hurting both, and it's really been driven by a mean-spirited, divisive politics that is really afraid, because you know in the country right now, the flip side of those numbers is that poor people, poor low-wage people now make up more than 30% of the electorate. In so-called battleground states where the margin of victory was within 3% in the presidential race in the last election, poor and low-wage people make up 40 to 43%. So in those states, for instance, in Wisconsin, the margin of victory in the presidential election was 20,000 votes. Over 1 million poor and low-wage people did not vote. In Michigan, 10,000 votes, and over 1 million didn't vote. In North Carolina, 174,000 was the margin of victory in the presidential race. Over 1 million didn't vote. And if, in fact, poor and low-wage people of all races, creeds, and color were to come together around an agenda that demanded living wages, that demanded health care, that demanded fully funded public education, that demanded, as I said, living wages that would lift 50-some million poor and low-wage people out of poverty and low wages immediately. If they said we can end poverty and abolish poverty, if they came together around an agenda like that, they could fundamentally, in fact, the numbers say that in most states, it would only, on the battleground states, it would just be 3 to 5% of poor and low-wage people uniting together. It's the largest potential swing vote in the country. So those that don't want to engage in these kind of progressive policies, they'd rather engage in trickle-down economics. They'd rather blame poor whites and poor and low-wage Black people for their problems rather than look at the systemic reasons that poverty and low wages exist. They are afraid of that block coming together. So the division has gone on for years. And what we're saying is we have to take on these mythologies. In fact, we opened the book with the solution. We opened the book talking about the power of fusion politics. If we come together around an agenda, and we talked about why we cannot ignore the crisis of our time. I want to repeat that again. 140 million poor and low-wage people in this country ought to make all of us ashamed. The level of death should make us tremble. And the fact that that's 51% of our children, and all of this are necessary. But what we know is that the greedy, those that would rather have tax cut, those who would rather have welfare to the corporations, and rather than lifting up the poor, are very powerful and want to see the division. What we're arguing is let's come together across the lines of race and class, not denying race, but not denying the truth either, because that's a power block that can fundamentally shift the electoral realities in this country, and thereby fundamentally address and shift the policies of the country.
The book, again, is entitled White Poverty, came out last month. Reverend Barber, one of the co-authors of that book, with us in the next half hour on the Washington Journal. Want to give viewers the phone lines for them to call in: 202-748-8000 for Democrats, Republicans 202-748-8001, Independents 202-748-8002. We'll get to your calls as you're calling in. Reverend Barber, the new Republican vice presidential pick by Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, has written a lot about white poverty in his time, specifically in his book, Hillbilly Elegy. Did you read that book? What did you think about how he describes this issue?
Well, not only did we read it, but we have a major piece of that in white poverty. In fact, my co-editor, Jonathan Hartgrove, writes a piece about that, and I have to comment that one of the problems with Vance's presentation, he starts out, you think, saying that he wants to lift up those in poverty, particularly who he calls them hillbillies, I like to say in Appalachia and places like that. But then if you keep reading, he basically blames the poor for their poverty. And said, and in that book, he actually goes against Trump in his book, but and in later comments. But then he says that the problem is that white poor brothers and sisters are not religious enough, have walked away from religion, have walked away from their morality, and basically he then becomes a cover for those who don't want to shift policy but want to blame people for their problem. What we're saying in our book is that is all wrong. In this country, we've not raised the minimum wage for 15 years, since 2009. Income for CEOs has gone up. Prices have gone up. People have been required to do more work. But we've not raised the minimum wage for 15 years, $7.25, $2.13 for waiter. It doesn't matter what your color is. If you make $7.25 an hour, there's not a county in this country where you can work a minimum wage job, a federal minimum wage job, and afford a basic 2-bedroom apartment. Healthcare in this country, there are more than 87 million people without healthcare or who are underinsured. Healthcare should not be connected to your job. It should be connected to your humanity. What we know is that in every state that is led by Republicans, or extremists. I don't like to say Republican because my grandfather was a Lincoln Republican and an Eisenhower Republican. But everyone is led by extremists who call themselves Republican. They are anti-raising minimum wage, anti-health care, anti-fully funding public education, and they are anti-labor rights. The very things that have been proven that lift people out of poverty. It's not a handout, it's a making the playing field more level so that people can rise up. I've been in Appalachia, in Kentucky, East Kentucky, and met people like Brother Sturgill, who died from black lung disease. He was a coal miner, and he talked to me along with others about how politicians allowed the coal mines to be taken over by multinational countries and didn't steal their labor rights. They didn't grandfather their labor rights. They messed over their pensions. He died in our movement. I've met with people like Pam Garrison in West Virginia, who introduced me to poor white women who are working hard every day, but less than a basic minimum wage of $15 an hour. They can't even afford basic needs for women during the month. They have to sell tacos on Tuesday to exist. I met Pam down in Belhaven, North Carolina, before she died in a high school parking lot because the politicians in North Carolina refused to expand Medicaid. It caused rural hospitals to close. Pam, a white woman, was the first casualty of that closing. She died in a high school parking lot only 5 minutes away from the former hospital. This is who we're talking about when we talk about the poor. And J.D. Vance, what he does is basically blames people, which is an old line, blames people that people used to call poor white trash and those kinds of things. We're saying no. That is not right. Poverty is created by immoral policies. We don't have a lack of resources. We don't have a lack of problem-solving realities. We could abolish and end poverty. If you pass today, and we almost did it, but except for 8 Democrats and every Republican in 2020, voted against raising the minimum wage. I want my listeners to hear that. 8 Democrats and every Republican voted against raising the minimum wage to a basic living wage of $15 an hour, which was a request of the civil rights movement in 1963 to raise the minimum wage to $2 an hour and index it with inflation, which would make it about $17, $18 today. If that had been passed, then 52 million poor and low wage people, not black, but poor and low wage people, black, white, brown, would have been lifted out of poverty with one piece of legislation that would have pumped $330 billion into the economy. But people would rather give a tax break to the corporations that are already making gross amounts of money than to simply raise the minimum wage that we have not raised since 2009. You don't see Vance talking about these issues. Instead, he kind of turns in on poor and low wage people, his own people, rather than lift up the kind of policies that would make a difference. And again, actually,
let me get to, I have plenty of callers waiting to chat with you, and I only got 45 minutes with you, and the lines are full. So I don't think I'll be able to even get to the ones that we have on the lines right now. But let me try to get them in because they're happy to chat with you. This is Marcus in Columbus, Ohio, a Democrat. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to thank Reverend Barber for being here and really continuing on like a lot of the legacy of what Martin Luther King has passed on. And I appreciate the clarity in which you deliver the message, because it's not just about seeing people and not saying slurs. There's an economic rights that have to also be delivered to make sure everybody, black, white, indigenous, doesn't matter. Everybody has a chance to what people should have. And my question is not so much towards all the things that you're doing now, but more towards organizing and making a difference for the future, and also trying to connect this to the international struggle. So I do want to ask, what is the Poor People's Campaign position on the genocide in Gaza? But also, how do we start moving towards the international as well, and not just focusing on making demands for the people in power that now, in the election cycle, but organizing in between those election cycles to actually build power, to connect communities in ways that the government isn't doing, so that we can help our people now. I'm curious as to, what do we do in between time for the election?
Marcus, we'll take the questions.
Well, along with my co-chair, Reverend Dr. Liz Steele Harris, the Kairos Center executive director there, and others, we've been mobilizing for years now. Since 2018, we started with a study called The Souls of Poor Folk, and we looked at 5 interlocking injustices that continue to exacerbate poverty. And this was before COVID, because COVID didn't create poverty and low wage, it exacerbated and exposed it. Those 5 areas are systemic policies of systemic racism, systemic poverty, ecological devastation, denial of health care, the war economy, and the false moral narrative of religious nationalism that tends to take religion and turn it and use it as a weapon of hate and anti the poor, as well, rather than a faith of love and justice for all and lifting up the poor and good news to the poor. Now we've mobilized over 40 some coordinating committees around the country. And on June 29th, we had one of the largest gathering of poor and low-wage brothers and sisters and faith leaders. Tens of thousands of people showed up in Washington, D.C., several million online. And we announced that we were putting out a 17-point agenda, and that we were going to mobilize and touch 15 million of the 30 million poor and low-wage infrequent voters across this country with an agenda telling them to look at candidates not based on just their innuendos and their personality, but on their policy record. Where do they stand on certain issues? And part of that agenda was we called for peace around the world. We stood against what happened on October 7th, and innocent people, women and children were killed. We also said we were against what was happening with Netanyahu and the gross retaliation against Palestinian innocent people, women and children, but more so for a plan of peace. But what we said was we could not ignore 295,000 people dying every year from poverty and low wages and then be concerned about other issues. We also said we're concerned about genocide of poor people in Congo and in Yemen and Somalia around the world. But we have to deal with the reality here, otherwise we don't have credibility. And we believe we're mobilizing and organizing people across racial lines. And again, when I talk about the poor, I'm talking about that woman, not just asking for spare change, but the person who bags your groceries but can't even hardly afford food in that same place. The person who works in a manufacturing place and then sleeps in their car at night. The person who does healthcare but can't even afford to go to the hospital or maybe doesn't even have health insurance. We must expand our understanding of who we're talking about when we talk about poor and low-wage people, and we must mobilize. And what we're saying to poor and low-wage folks, it's time to go on the offensive now and rise, because we have this powerful voting bloc that can fundamentally transform the American electorate.
On the wage issue, Tony writes in as you were making your comments via Twitter saying minimum wage jobs are not the path to prosperity. California has a minimum wage of $20 and a poverty rate that's identical to the national average. He says you can lift people out of poverty, but it'll only plunge them back in by inflation in this country.
Well, there is this argument that wage inflation creates inflation. Inflation comes by gross activity of price gouging and war and what we recently went through, the pandemic and what it costs. When you say minimum wage, we're saying the federal minimum wage ought to be at least $15 an hour, the federal minimum wage. And of course, in other states, then that's going to require wages to be looked at based on cost of living in those particular states. But isn't it amazing that the only place we tend to say people having more money won't work is when it comes to poor and low wage working people. Everybody else, money is good. Corporation, good. Give us more, give us $2 trillion of tax cut. CEOs, good. Give us millions of dollars and parachutes for when we retire. But when it comes to people who are striving hard every day, and remember when we talk about raising the living wage, we're talking about poor and low wage working people, and among which the majority are white. In fact, the majority of poor and low-wage people are women. So over 73 million of the people we're talking about are white women in this country. And so not white women, they're women. And the large majority of them are white women who are the largest majority of the poor and low-wage in this country. We have to stop living in these mythologies. To me, it boggles my mind that people would fight people that are working, having a living wage, instead would argue that the wage is fine. $7.25 an hour basically is about $13,000 a year. There are politicians that argue that the minimum that a living wage is only about that you're out of poverty if you make above $13,000 a year. So they argue that if you make $7.25 an hour, you are in the lower middle class. You are not poor, low wage. That is absolutely ridiculous. And none of them would attempt to live off of that amount.
Let me go to
And so
let me go to North Carolina. Bob's waiting in Waxhaw, North Carolina, Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I have a couple years ago, I read an article by Walter Williams, and he made 4 points about accumulating wealth and helping people get out of poverty. And there's 4 items I'd just like to speak about real quickly, very quickly. Number 1, when you're young, get some type of a job, any type of a job. It'll teach you self-esteem. Number 2,
poverty.
Working with Adobe Acrobat AI Assistant, I'm creating a business of acting manual to help others. A manual of this size would take me maybe a year. With AI Assistant, I can finish it in 4 to 6 weeks.
Wages and sometimes pay more taxes than the CEO. Some of what you're listing are the mythologies. Come go with me to Appalachia. But I would love for you to go. Come go to Appalachia. Come go to places where we see people living in poverty who are struggling and working hard every day. And then be mindful that it was Theodore Roosevelt, a Republican, who first said in 1912, when he challenged both parties, he said that we ought to have a moral agenda. That moral agenda ought to include health care. It ought to include a minimum living wage. It ought to include taking care of the environment. This was a Republican that said that. Eisenhower, who's a Republican, said we ought to put more investment in public education, and we ought to be leery, he said, of the military industrial complex that
Amen.
soak up all the money from the people that actually need it in the country. And so I encourage you, Bob, to read this book, because what you might find is something that is not rooted in the mythologies, but is rooted in the truth. We're talking about 140 million people, the majority of which are white, and among Black people, over 60%. And to suggest that those 135, 140 million people are somehow immoral, didn't keep their nose clean, didn't get jobs. Some of them are working 2 and 3 jobs and still can't make it. And all are poor because they had babies out of wedlock. It's just not the truth. It doesn't line up with the data. It lines up with mythology.
Let me take you to Pennsylvania. This is Tony in Floortown, Pennsylvania, independent. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's your question or comment, Tony?
Oh, just wanted to make sure it was this Tony. Yeah, I really appreciate the perspective of this guest and the focus on poverty. I feel like the country, say the oligarchs, the billionaires that are in charge, they do a really good job of dividing us by gender, by race, by skin tone, and they often neglect, diminish, and hide this perspective. I would say this was the perspective of Martin Luther King, and it has strong roots that we need to get back to. I would say the Republican Party has, in many ways, captured the symbol of Jesus, but don't represent Jesus. You know, Jesus talked about the least among us. And I would say the Democratic Party has captured Martin Luther King, but don't share his values. They're not anti-war. They don't talk about poverty. It's a very whitewashed, commercialized corporate Martin Luther King that is the Democratic Party. And what?
Well, Bishop Barber, let me give you a chance to weigh in.
And I'm glad that other brought up what Dr. King mentioned, but even Joseph Stiglitz, who is a renowned economist, talks about the price of inequality. Yes, it was Dr. King, but it was many others, Black and white. It was welfare rights, women, actually that started the Poor People's Campaign. It was women who started it and invited Dr. King and others into it, women of all different races, creeds, and colors back in the 60s. But the point, but the caller is right. We are united. Over a third of the country is united by this reality every day. They experience the deaths, they experience the lack, they experience the unnecessary, abolishable lack and hurt. And it can be changed. That's the point. And what we're arguing also in the book is that what we have done too often in our political debates, we had 15 or so debates in the last presidential election, and not one of those debates focused on what is impacting a third of the country. We cannot have that. We had, as I said, 8 Democrats and all the Republicans in the Senate block a living wage of $15 an hour that came to the Senate, having been passed in the House, that we had pushed for. We cannot have that go on and continue. We cannot just let people languish in poverty and low wages in the richest nation in the country. We need to change our political conversation. We need to stop the mythology. You know, we had a recent debate, and there's been a lot of argument about, you know, Trump lying and what some said was Biden being slow in his responses, and they call it failure. What we saw as failure is that not 30 minutes of that debate focused on what 140 million people face in this country, and asked each person, you're running for president, what is going to be your goal? What is going to be your policy? What are you going to push for and fight for? If you get the majority in the House and in the Senate and the presidency, what are you going to do? Are
Have you had a
going
chance
to
to ask
call
that?
the name of the poor?
Have you had a chance to ask that question of Kamala Harris?
We will. We've asked it. In fact, Kamala Harris is on record in 20, I think it was 19, coming to our More Poverty Action Congress of actually saying that she saw this issue as critical. And the other day in Delaware, she mentioned right off, her dream of a world is a world where child poverty does not exist. One of the greatest moral failing is 51% of our children live in poverty and low wages unnecessarily. We're gonna be pushing that to every candidate, both sides of the aisle. We're mobilizing, as I said, and touching 15 million poor and low wage voters who are going to come to the electorate saying, if you want these votes, talk to us. Talk about the issues that are impacting our lives. And they're across all the different races, colors, and geographies. That's what white poverty is talking about. I'm a Black man. And I know I'm a Black man, but I also have in my DNA Tuscarora Indian. I have persons who are Caucasian as well in my DNA. My father's side of the family comes from a free community that was free even during the days of slavery. And my father taught me you have to own all of who you are. And out of that experience, I'm saying to America, you have to own all of who you are. You cannot have this level of poverty and hurt. You cannot have over 50 million people working for less than a minimum living wage and just ignore it in your political discussions and your political policies. And you also can't be happy with just minimum increases here and there, just a little bit of change here and there, when in fact we could have fundamental change.
This is Joseph in Houston, Texas. Line for Democrats. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bishop. My
Good
question
morning.
is, for the sake of time, is what can we do about encouraging those who are discouraged to vote with this platform you are promoting? Can you list the top 3 actions to convince more involvement in the political process? Thank you.
Well, you know, thank you so much for that question. One of the mythologies also that exist is that poor and low-wage people have been told they don't matter politically, and they've been told that they don't vote. In fact of the matter, there's 87 million poor and low-wage voters in the last election. 57 million voted, 30 million didn't. Poor and low-wage people voted, but the problem is they voted several percentage points lower than middle and upper high class persons. If they voted at the same rate as middle class and upper middle class persons in this country, we would see a very different outcome in our election. When you tell people that they have that kind of power, that the stones that the builder rejected are not just victims. They don't have to be victims of the system. They don't have to be impacted by the system. They can change the system. They have the power to come together, the power to unite around an agenda. That transforms how people understand who they are and what they can do. That's number one. Number two, then you must actively engage in mobilizing that community. If politicians and others don't talk to them, we have to talk to them. Moral leaders have to talk to them. Peer-to-peer conversation has to happen to mobilize people. That's why we're engaging in this practical mobilization going on right now. And then thirdly, you can't leave after elections. You have to stay engaged between elections. You have to constantly push, constantly be in the present, in the face, non-violently, of course, but constantly be in the face. Because when we talk about these policies, we're talking about a handout. We're talking about America being what she said she would be on paper, to quote Dr. King. In the preamble of our Constitution, we say that you must establish justice. There is nothing just about people not having a minimum living wage and not raising the minimum wage for 15 years. There's nothing just about people languishing in poverty, particularly children, when you could use the child tax credit and actually lift children out of poverty and families out of poverty and earned income tax credit. These are things that even Reagan, interestingly enough, agreed to. There's nothing just about health care. If you're a congressperson, you get free health care the moment you get elected and go to Congress. But then you fight people having that same opportunity for health care. There's nothing just about that. And lastly, it doesn't promote the general welfare of all people, which is what every person swears to do when they get elected. They say, I swear to uphold this Constitution, which means to promote the general welfare of all people. So we must let people know what their power is. We must help in mobilizing that power and build unity, fusion coalitions across geographic areas and across race, and exercise that power both during elections and after election, and refuse to take no for an answer. Because really, addressing poverty is a matter of life and death. 290,000 plus people die every year from poverty and low wages. 800 people a day. When we got to 500 people dying a day from COVID, we called it an epidemic. Well, we have an epidemic of poverty and low wages in this country. The Surgeon General really ought to put on every low-wage job that is hazardous to your health. And we should fight to change this in this country.
Just a couple minutes left. Another question from Twitter via Deb, as you've been chatting, saying, Bishop Barber, do you think illegal immigration hurts low-income American citizens?
First of all, this issue of immigration is used as a wedge issue. Immigration is not illegal. It is a process that we have. We are a country of immigrants. We are a country of immigrants. What hurts this country is to have a process that actually burdens those who would desire to come in this country, the vitriol that we see. In fact, remember now, we've had the majority of immigrants come in this country. It's interesting. I come from the South. And I remember when people didn't have any problem with immigrants coming to work the farms for lesser wages. But we didn't crack down on the folk that hired them. We wanted to crack down on the people that came, of course, after they did the work. What we should have is a just immigration policy. We should not just blame immigrants for the problem and create wedge issues. And irregardless of the immigration issue, that still does not change the minimum wage. That still does not address the issue of health care. That still does not address fully funding public education. Let's stop trying to find a way to blame somebody for poverty and low wage and really address the issues that impact the poverty, that impact the poor and low wage. That still doesn't address having strong safety nets for people, social safety for disabled and hurting and people who fall into poverty. We have got to come to a place in this country where we say things like, I remember doing one of the times we were going through economic trouble, and we said companies were too big to fail. Well, I'm a preacher, and in my Bible, it says every person is made in the image of God, the imago Dei, which means people are too human and too created by God to fail. And we should address the policies that create and cause poverty and not try to find a way around them or a way to change the subject matter.
Again, the book, White Poverty, How Exposing Myths About Race and Class Can Reconstruct American Democracy. The co-author is Bishop William Barber. He's the president of Repairers of the Breach, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, founding director of the Center for Public Policy and Public Theology at Yale. And we do always appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you so much, and God bless you, and thank you for your audience.
About 30 minutes left in our program this morning. In that time, we turn this program over to you. It's our open forum. Any public policy issue, any political issue that you want to talk about, now's the time for you to run the phones. Phone numbers are on your screen. Go ahead and start dialing in, and we will get to your calls right after the break.
American History TV, Saturdays on C-SPAN 2, exploring the people and events that tell the American story. At 6:15 p.m. Eastern, we'll feature President Lyndon Johnson's March 1968 address to the nation, where he announced steps to limit the war in Vietnam and his decision not to run for re-election. At 7 p.m., watch American History TV series Historic Convention Speeches, featuring notable remarks by presidential nominees and other political figures from the past several decades. This week, former Nixon aide and media commentator Pat Buchanan speaking at the 1992 Republican National Convention in Houston after losing the party's nomination to President George H.W. Bush. Then, former New York Senator Hillary Clinton at the 2008 Democratic National Convention in Denver after losing the party's nomination to Illinois Senator Barack Obama. And at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, a look back at Betty Ford and Rosalind Carter's 1984 conference on the private lives and public duties of First Ladies, with a discussion on the role of First Ladies since then. Exploring the American Story. Watch American History TV, Saturdays on C-SPAN 2, and find a full schedule on your program guide, or watch online anytime at cspan.org/history. Book TV, every Sunday on C-SPAN 2, features leading authors discussing their latest nonfiction books. We'll revisit our 2019 interview with Kamala Harris, who was a senator at the time and is now the vice president and the presumptive 2024 Democratic nominee for president. In this discussion about her book, The Truths We Hold, she reflects on her upbringing and how it's influenced her governing style. Then at 9 p.m. Eastern, retired CENTCOM Commander General Kenneth McKenzie with his book, The Melting Point, which looks at war in the 21st century and U.S. military operations in the Middle East. And at 10 p.m. Eastern on Afterwards, New York Times reporter Peter Goodman discusses his book, How the World Ran Out of Everything, looking at the global supply chain, how it works, and what happens when it doesn't. He's interviewed by Northeastern University professor and author Nada Sanders. Watch Book TV every Sunday on C-SPAN 2, and find a full schedule on your program guide, or watch online anytime at booktv.org.
This Book Notes Plus podcast is a repeat of a Q&A program from November 4, 2015. The featured guest, Ronald Feynman, is the author of the book Assassinations, Threats, and the American Presidency, in which he examines attempts on the lives of presidents and presidential candidates throughout history.
Ronald Feynman with his book Assassinations, Threats, and the American Presidency on this episode of Book Notes Plus. Book Notes Plus is available on the C-SPAN Now free mobile app or wherever you get your podcasts. Washington Journal continues.
In our last half hour this morning, open forum, any public policy issue, any political issue you want to talk about. Been a busy week. Happy to chat about what's on your mind. This is Bob up first in Atlanta, Georgia, Republican. Bob, go ahead. Open forum.
Hey, John, first of all, let me compliment you on your program. I watch it a lot, and I just really love the way you MC it. One thing I would like to say, and that is that you should have pointed out to your last guest that what he is espousing is a socialist state and a slash communist state, and it was tried in 1917 in the country of Russia. They tried it for the next 70 years. And
I guess they're using it too.
You've got, and you're educated, John, and that's one thing I love about listening to you. And I would just like for you to have pointed out to him that it's already been tried.
Bob, what's your take on minimum wages in general? Do you think we should even have one?
Yes. Let me tell you something. Somebody crunched the numbers on the man's state that he would create. And a mathematician crunched all the numbers once that I heard a good talk about, and they came up with a figure of about $20,000. Let me ask you this question, John. Could you, if you were a spouse, all that he wants, free education, free health care, free this, free that, the mathematician came up with a figure of $20,000 a year. All of us, if he taxed us to the point that to pay for what he wants, you'd have to learn to live on $20,000 a year. Now, let me ask you a question, John. Could you live on $20,000 a year?
Bob, do you think Americans, what is the number Americans can live on or should be able to live on?
There, but the point is, we don't want to all be lower class like that, John. To let the cream rise to the top, and that brings up another subject. If you don't let the cream rise to the top and reward them accordingly, they won't. They won't bother, and then they'll do just like the Russians and throw all the aristocrats or the upper class out. And you throw the baby out with the bathwater, and the whole country is just a bunch of equal people living on $20,000 a year.
That's Bob in Georgia. To the capital of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. This is Latif. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yep, go ahead.
Excellent. Wanted to talk about some things that happened earlier this week. Biden's presidential address was heartfelt and it was late. Wish he would have did that earlier.
You mean late as in time in the day, or late as in when he did it versus when he released that statement?
Late as in time to resign, right? If he would have did that earlier, we'd have had a more organized primary contest and go through the, all of the candidates and have a more extensive review of, who's available in the Democratic Party to run and who would be the best to face up against whoever would be like a nominee.
Latif, do you think we got a good enough explanation from Joe Biden on his change of heart here of being so certain I'm the only person who can beat Donald Trump to I'm passing the torch?
Passing the torch is where he should have left it. That's where he started. He said he would be the candidate to usher in essentially a new generation of voters. Me being 32 is some of the younger, but not the youngest for sure that would be able to vote. But it's been passing the torch from the beginning. I don't think he should have tried to run for an additional campaign regardless. So I don't think he should have did that. I am on the fence though about Kamala. If she takes an aggressive stance on any of the, I got a few things here.
Give me one or two because I got a bunch of people waiting.
Got it. So student loans, I believe, just hamstringing the country by having a financial paywall for education is not an American first way to do things. Housing market, I think capping the rent increases is a little too late. The median rent price is like $2,200 or something like that. So that's not going to work. Also, add a little nuance to the abortion conversation. 2/3 of the women who want an abortion already have children, but not afford it. So I feel like if we approach the abortion conversation in that way, we can bring over more people who, don't like the abortions, but understand the financial holdout and how we could really change that for America.
That's Latif in Pennsylvania. Gary in the Constitution State Independent. Good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, John. I spoke to you the last time in 2019. I'm sure you don't remember, but at that time I indicated to you that as a European U.S. citizen, a dual citizen, that I had intended to move to Italy because of my complete upset with the way the country was going. I did that. I returned 18 months ago because I had my first grandchild at the age of 74, and I'm back. And my observations are that as soon as I can, I'd like to return to Europe. I have premier health care here in the U.S. My health care coverage is excellent. But the health care I received under what many people deem as socialist governments, their social democracies with a mixture of free enterprise, is just as good, if not better, than what I'm getting here. And
Gary, how's your taxes over there?
I pay taxes here and there. It's a mixture of both. So there's no real change in my tax statement. I live well. People are more friendly. They're kinder towards one another. What I see going on in this country is heartbreaking. I've always been a patriotic American, but this isn't the America that I grew up in. And it's just, it's disheartening for me to see it It's actually, I think, gotten worse since I left. It's not gotten better.
Out of curiosity, whereabouts in Italy?
I lived in Tuscany in a little town called Borgo San Lorenzo. My last name is Smith, oddly enough. I thought I'd be the only Smith in the phone book for once, but that was not the case. Turns out there are two others.
That's Gary in Connecticut and Tuscany. This is Richard in Reston, Virginia, Democrat. Good morning.
Good morning. I believe it was in 2016 when Bernie Sanders was running for president. He made the statement, "There are no poor white people in this country." I am so happy and pleased with the show that you presented today. Thank you for that. Now, I have a question. Can I ask one other subject?
Sure, Richard. It's open forum.
Okay. Trump has been found guilty in New York, and New York has a law that says if you serve jail time, you are no longer eligible to vote. And Florida has a custom of accepting the terms of whatever state. I think this should be brought to the attention, because not so much to have Trump serve jail time, but to bring up very clearly the subject of voter restrictions.
We don't know if Donald Trump is going to serve jail time, Richard. Do you think he will?
No, I doubt that he will, but just bringing the subject up gets it into discussion. That's the important thing. The discussion on voter restrictions, I believe, is very important, and it has not been made this campaign by anybody.
What do you think the law should be on when somebody should lose the right to vote, Richard?
I don't know. I am willing to accept that if you're in jail, you have given up that right. But if you've served your time for it, definitely you should have that right returned.
That's Richard in Virginia. Kelly in Rome, Georgia, Republican. Go ahead.
Good morning, John. Thank you for taking my call. There's so many things on my mind, but I think the main thing, I appreciate C-SPAN this morning, telling the truth and being transparent a little about Kamala Harris. The left gaslit us about Joe Biden being fine for years, and that we weren't seeing what we were seeing with our own two eyes until they couldn't hide it anymore. Now they're trying to do that with Kamala Harris. If she really wasn't put in charge of the border, she may not be Mayorkas. You can pull the tape up. And lastly, if the left is going to put her race and gender as the main reason to vote for her, it is not wrong for the right to push back and go, hey, maybe that's not good enough. Because we know for a fact that Joe Biden picked a Supreme Court justice and her based only on race and color. But if that's all they can talk about and we can never mention it, completely unfair. But I thank you for being open and transparent, and thank goodness my dog was quiet today, because I love talking to you, but you usually hear my dog in the background.
What's your dog's name, Kelly?
His name is Hunter.
Give Hunter a pet. This is Elma in Franklin, Kentucky, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning there.
What's on your mind, Elma?
Well, it's on my mind about Kamala Harris. Biden ain't done a thing for this world but ruin it, and this was a setup piece of business for him to go out and put her on against Trump. Everybody ought to know this is a setup piece of business. He quit. There wasn't nothing wrong with him to quit president. He just quit to put her on because he seen he wasn't going to beat Trump, and he got her. And she's no better than him, because they both hurt the country since they've been in there. This abortion thing, they all raised in hell about. If they didn't know it, that's one of our 10 commandments in the Bible.
and they know that's wrong, and I don't know why they're raising such hell over abortion and all this stuff. What they need to do is get God back up in Washington, and everything will be all right. And they've told lies on Trump. Trump after Trump, they've told lies. Trump ain't done all they told. Biden had stored up the stack from Washington House and his thing. Didn't hear that but one time. His son, him and his son both over China over yonder. And then you're talking about Trump.
Thelma, when was the last time?
You know, I'll vote for Trump and I'll tell Tom Harris. Just mess up its own there, and thanks for talking to you.
Thelma, are you still with us?
No, she hung up.
Mary in Michigan, Independent. Good morning.
Good morning, John. I've been trying to call you all week. We do on Sunday, we do like a thing with I've got 12 nieces, and they're between the age of 19 and 44. And the excitement of these young women who lived from California to Virginia over Kamala Harris was unbelievable. I've gotten texts all week long. Now, 4 of them happen to be nurses. And I've got a niece and a nephew that are in nursing school right now because they worked through the pandemic. And our great governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and the Democratic-run people in Lansing, Michigan, made money available so that they could further their education. And the one thing that I want to say, if I worked through the pandemic, I'm a nurse. I retired early because of the pandemic. I worked for 2 years. If Donald Trump would have had 1 ounce of empathy or shown any leadership during that time, he would have been reelected. I have been to 2 funerals in the last 2 months of former colleagues who have died of long COVID. I wish your producers would have programming while our Republican-run representatives and Senate is on their another 5-week break or do nothing, historically do nothing. Congress is on break, long COVID, and the difficulties of security. And the one thing I've been
And Mary, I'll point out we've done several long COVID segments over the years, but I appreciate the suggestion for one. And for Gretchen Whitmer, and you bring up Gretchen Whitmer, I wonder, there was some talk early on, and still some talk about her as a potential vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris. She took herself out of the running, saying she wanted to stay in Michigan. What do you think of that decision?
I think it's a great decision. You know, during the pandemic, she was just one or two tweets by the president at that time made a bunch of people basically want to kill her. And when I followed the trial of the gentlemen that were together and hatched this plan to kidnap her and everything, the one thing that still angers me today is when they talked about her security detail as being collateral damage. If they had to kill the state troopers that were her security detail, oh well, they were collateral damage. Apparently, they've watched too many movies.
Mary, you might be interested. Gretchen Whitmer out with a new book about her life.
I did hear that.
It's called True Gretch, and we covered an event this week in which she talked about it. We're going to air that on Book TV a week from Sunday on C-SPAN 2. So you can watch her talking about her book, her life on C-SPAN 2 Sunday, a week from Sunday. So tune in. All of our Book TV program available on the C-SPAN website, cspan.org, or you can just go to booktv.org to see our schedule each weekend. It's Book TV on Sundays on C-SPAN 2 and American History TV on Saturdays on C-SPAN 2. We've got 10 minutes left in open forum, taking your calls. This is Danny in Arkansas. Is it Hoxie, Arkansas, Danny? Hoxie? Hoxie. All right, I'll remember that.
How are you this morning, young man?
I'm doing well, sir. What's on your mind?
Okay, the bishop you had on earlier
He's very well read on his history. I enjoyed listening to him. Speaking of history, everybody's on the Kamala Harris wife he couldn't run and all this. Anybody that worked for her campaign taking notes of this, put in the suggestion box. A good rally cry would be the 19th Amendment, women's suffrage.
And why do you think that's a good rally cry specifically today, Danny?
I'm not going to point fingers and name specific areas, but I know people personally that do not think women should be involved in politics. I know people that women should not be in the clergy. And I was raised by a single mother, and it's like, yeah, you just give her that look like I'm better than you, you're going to get backhanded. I could see her campaign going, okay, we won the right to vote in 1920. Step it up a few years. I am winning thanks to the 19th Amendment. And just, you can turn it into theater, whatever you want to call it. Mr. Trump is famous for that. What I've heard so far history is Ronald Reagan. The area I grew up in northern Illinois, Ronald Reagan's politics almost destroyed the industry up there. They claim that Illinois had the highest unemployment percentage in the nation at point in time. And I thought, being a truck driver around town, it's like, yeah, we're going to shrivel up and die here.
That's Danny in the Natural State. This is Catherine in the Green Mountain State, Essex Junction, Democrat. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I am calling to respond to Kelly and her dog, Hunter, and their comments about Ketanji, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and Vice President Kamala Harris. It's funny how, everyone is saying that, these are DEI hires. Mm-hmm. And we know that they mean that they did not earn their positions. But I find it interesting because Vice President Harris has a bachelor's degree from Howard University, a Juris Doctorate from the University of California. She was the AG for California. Ketanji Brown Harris has both her bachelor's and her Juris Doctorate degrees from Harvard University and served as a judge at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. So with those educational and experience credentials behind their names, how are these women not qualified? How did they not earn it? So I just want to make sure that Kelly and her dog Hunter and everyone else knows that these women have the credentials, their education, the experience behind their names to serve in these roles. It has nothing to do with their skin color. But thank you very much for allowing me to say this to Kelly and Hunter and everyone else who's listening. Have a great weekend, C-SPAN.
That's Catherine in Vermont. Joyce is in Stockbridge, Georgia. Good morning.
Yes. I love that people are still calling a felon. He got charged with a paper with a misdemeanor that had already expired, and they brought it back to life with a corrupt DOJ man, just so they can talk about him being a felon. He is not a felon. It's ridiculous. 34 paper counts put up so that they could make it a felon. States could never even quit done it. Okay, sorry. Secondly, Kamala Harris, communist, wants to make all of our country equal, which means wealth redistribution. So anyone with anything is going to be taken away. All should be equal, just like that man you had on earlier was talking about. So if that's what you want for America, then we're going to be a communist country.
It's Joyce in Georgia. Maggie in Pennsylvania, Independent. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Hello. Yes. I just wanted to say what prompted me to call was a woman from Kentucky. She talked about the Bible related to abortion and stuff like that. But anyhow, I think that a lot of people are forgetting portions of the Bible. People that claim, their faith. In the Bible, it warns us, it warns us of people that would exalt golden idols and graven images. And that's exactly what Trump did. The last convention, they elected a golden idol in Trump's image, staring everybody right in the face. Then prophecy also tells us about a person who would get an injury on and about their head. It was intended to kill them, and yet somehow it did.
That's Maggie in Pennsylvania. Less than 5 minutes left in our program. A little bit of C-SPAN history trivia for you. 1980 was the first viewer call-in segment that we did on C-SPAN. The first caller came from Yankton, South Dakota. Estelle is waiting in Yankton, South Dakota, line for Democrats. Good morning.
Yes, I'm thinking about just vice president, and I believe Liz Cheney would be a beautiful vice president to contain both parties and balance the ticket and unify the country. I would like to see that happen.
Estelle, how far are we from a unified country right now?
We're a long ways from a unified country. Even families are differing over these things.
When's the last time we were a unified country?
Oh, I'd be quite some time, probably back to Eisenhower.
Do you remember that time, Estelle? Were you around?
Just barely.
You don't think we've been unified since?
No, this Republican and Democrat split has gone on for way too long, and I think we need to correct that. And that would put a perfect balance in the White House.
That's Estelle, Yankton, South Dakota, our last caller in today's program. But of course, we will be back here tomorrow morning. It is 7 a.m. Eastern when we start, and that is 4 a.m. Pacific. In the meantime, hope you have a great Friday. Hope you have a great weekend.
Okay, let's stop the share. That was so fast, but we're gonna share the screen again. Hmm. Let's just select the text and read it.
Via electronic mail, Darlene Anderson, 400 Mona Lane, Unit 4, Henderson, Nevada, 89015. Darlene Evilups Anderson at gmail.com regarding case number 1019-1226, Clark County School District. Dear Ms. Anderson, United States Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights, Region 9, California 50, United Nations Plaza, Mailbox 1200, Room 1545, San Francisco, CA 94102, December 20th, 2019. This is in response to your appeal dated December 7th, 2019 to the Office for Civil Rights, OCR, regarding the closure of the above referenced complaint against the Clark County School District. Pursuant to OCR's case processing procedures, an appeal of OCR's decision to close allegations must be filed within 60 days of the date of the determination letter. You filed your appeal on December 7th, 2019, more than 60 days past the date of the determination letter of June 25th, 2019. Accordingly, your appeal is untimely. This concludes OCR's consideration of your appeal and is the final agency determination. Final agency determinations and regional office determinations are not formal statements of OCR policy and should not be relied upon, cited, or construed as such. OCR's formal policy statements are approved by a duly authorized OCR official and are made available to the public. You have now exhausted all avenues of review within the U.S. Department of Education. You may have the right to file a private suit in federal court, regardless of OCR's determination. Sincerely, Anna Maria Loya, Acting Regional Director. The Department of Education's mission is to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. www.eed.gov.
Okay, this is how they are providing services under the PTA standards, not not the same standards that they would use to ensure adequacy happens. So let's just go over the PTA standards, shall we, this morning?
National Standards, Goals, and Indicators for Family School Partnership. Standard 1. Welcoming all families into the school community. Families are active participants in the life of the school and feel welcomed, valued, and connected to each other, to school staff, and to what students are learning and doing in class. Goal 1. Creating a welcoming climate. When families walk into the building, do they feel the school is inviting and is a place where they belong? Developing personal relationships. Creating a family-friendly atmosphere, providing opportunities for volunteering. Goal 2. Building a respectful, inclusive school community. Do the school's policies and programs reflect, respect, and value the diversity of the families in the community? Respecting all families, removing economic obstacles to participation, ensuring accessible programming. Standard 2. Communicating effectively. Families and school staff engage in regular, two-way, meaningful communication about student learning. Goal 1. Sharing information between school and families. Does the school keep all families informed about important issues and events and make it easy for families to communicate with teachers using multiple communication paths? Surveying families to identify issues and concerns, having access to.
Let's read this one. I think we're still here, so why not start speaking?
E. et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Melinda Bird. SBN number 100-2236. Melinda Bird at disabilityrightska.org. Robert Burrell. SBN number 295,640. Robert Burrell at disabilityrightska.org. Lauren Listrop. SBN number 326,849. Lauren Listrop at disabilityrightska.org. Disability Rights California, 350 S. Bixel Street, Suite 290, Los Angeles, CA 90017. Telephone 213-213-8000. Fax 213-213-8001. David W. German. SBN number 252,395. Vanneman German LLP, 14,001 Ventura Boulevard, Sherman Oaks, CA 91423. Telephone 818-990-7722. Fax 818-501. 1360. German at vannemangerman.com. Attorneys for plaintiffs. Additional counsel listed on next page. United States District Court, Northern District of California. E. by and through her guardian ad litem. A. J. and L. N. by and through his guardian ad litem. KN. on behalf of themselves and a class of those similarly situated, and Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, plaintiffs, versus State of California, California State Board of Education, and California Department of Education, defendants case no, class action complaint for injunctive and declaratory relief for violations of Americans with Disabilities Act, 42 U.S.C. Section 12131 et sec. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, 29 U.S.C. Section 794, 421 CV 7585 Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 Page 1 of 31-2 et al. V. State of California, et al. Case no. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Additional counsel continued from previous page. Claudia Center, SBN number 158255 Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund 3075 Adeline Street, Suite 210 Berkeley, CA 94703 Telephone 510-644-2555. Fax 510-841-8645. Center at dredf.org. Case 321 CV 07585. AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 Page 2 of 31-3 et al. V. State of California, et al. Case no. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Introduction 1. This is a civil rights complaint concerning discrimination by the state of California against its students with disabilities. California has adopted a new state law, Assembly Bill 130, that sharply limits alternatives to in-person classes, leaving families whose children are at higher risk from COVID-19 with only one option, independent study. Alarmingly, families of students with disabilities have found that California's independent study program is effectively closed to them because of the program design or absence of needed accommodations too. The new state statute requires school districts to automatically enroll non-disabled students in distance learning through independent study if their parents determine that their health would be put at risk by in-person instruction. Cal. Educ. Code Section 51745, 6. In contrast, students with disabilities face multiple hurdles in attempting to access the same program. 3. Plaintiff LN is 9 years old and has multiple disabilities, including a severely compromised immune system and chronic lung disease that put him at much higher risk from exposure to COVID-19. Nonetheless, he was able to access his educational program last year, safely and effectively through distance learning. When his school started in August 2021, his mother asked for distance learning through independent study. However, the new state law bans students who are in special education, such as LN, from participating in independent study unless the pupil's individualized education program IEP specifically provides for this participation. Cal. Educ. Code Section 51745, C. LN and his mother are still waiting for the school district to convene an IEP meeting to consider his eligibility for independent study or any other alternative to in-person classes. In the interim, school district personnel told LN's mother that he is unlikely to qualify for independent study, that they will not provide any of his special education services and supports even if he were to qualify, and until then, he is expected to attend in person despite his health conditions. To protect his health, he remains at home but has already missed a month of school. 4. Plaintiff E is 6 years old and has Down syndrome and associated medical. Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 Page 3 of 31-4 et al. V. State of California, et al. Case no. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Conditions that make her highly susceptible to infection and at heightened risk of serious complications if she is exposed to COVID-19. Her mother requested independent study for both EE and her twin sister, who is typically developing.
The school district enrolled EE's non-disabled sister immediately. EE had to wait several weeks with no instruction until the school could convene an IEP meeting because of Cal. Eduk. Code Section 51745. C. When the IEP team finally met, school district staff said EE would not be able to access independent study successfully due to her need for significant adult support, and that regardless, they would only provide her with the support services in her IEP if she attended in person, not through independent study. EE is still at home with no educational program, even though school started more than a month ago. 5. Other disabled students have been allowed to enroll in independent study, but only if they sign a written waiver, agreeing to give up their right to the accommodations and supports they need to learn. As a result of the new state law, California's state education system denies disabled students the alternative to in-person classes that it provides to other students, and denies them accommodations they need in the independent study program. 6. The exclusion of students with disabilities from access to distance learning through independent study constitutes unlawful discrimination in violation of Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, 42 U.S.C. Section 12131 et sec, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, 29 U.S.C. Section 794. Disabled students and their families now face an intolerable choice to attend in-person classes, despite the danger of the Delta variant to vulnerable children, or remain at home without access to their schools and the educational services they need to learn and succeed. 7. Defendant State of California, the State Board of Education and the California Department of Education, CDE, are collectively responsible for implementing California's public education program. By adopting and implementing the new independent study statute, they are administering the statewide public education program in a manner that discriminates against disabled students and perpetuates discriminatory actions by local school districts, which are their agents and contractors. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 4 of 31. 5 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 8. Plaintiffs and thousands of similarly situated students with disabilities need urgent relief in the form of a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction. With the spread of the Delta variant, in-person classrooms can quickly and silently become hotbeds of infection. Students under 12 years of age cannot be vaccinated and face increased risk of illness from the Delta variant than from earlier forms of COVID-19. Students who are medically compromised risk debilitating illness from exposure. Family members who are medically compromised also face life-threatening risks if students attend in-person classes and contract COVID. But these students also face serious risks if their families refuse to send them to in-person classes. They will lose precious instructional time and risk truancy citations if they fail to attend. If they attempt to participate in independent study without the accommodations they need, they will not be able to access the curriculum and will be effectively excluded from full and equal access to their educational program. 9. During the 2020-21 school year, the students with IEPs had distance learning plans that reflected how the services in their IEPs would be provided during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the status quo, the last uncontested state between the parties in this matter. While not perfect, many students, including plaintiffs EE and LN, adapted and were able to make educational progress during distance learning. The pandemic is not over. For a significant subset of students with disabilities, being forced to attend in-person classes would put them at serious risk of harm, allowing them to be denied access to any distance learning program, or forcing them to accept an online program with few or none of the services they require to access their education, ensures that the very students who have been harmed the most by the pandemic are now put in a position which will inevitably exacerbate their learning loss. 10. Plaintiffs seek a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction to restore the status quo by enjoining the requirement in the new independent study statute, Cal. Eduk. Code Section 51745, that students with disabilities must obtain prior approval from their IEP team, and be ordering defendants to ensure that disabled students receive the accommodations they require in independent study, including implementation of their existing distance learning plans. Only such an order will protect the health and safety of the student plaintiffs and enable Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 5 of 31-6 et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 them in the putative class to continue their education until they are safe to resume in-person classes. Plaintiffs also seek a permanent injunction and declaratory relief against all defendants. Jurisdiction and venue 11. This action for declaratory and injunctive relief arises under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, 42 U.S.C. Section 12131 et sec., and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504, 29 U.S.C. Section 794, 12. This court has original subject matter jurisdiction pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 1331 and 1343, because the matters in controversy arise from federal questions under the Constitution or laws of the United States. Pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 2201 and 2202, this court has jurisdiction to declare the rights of the parties and to grant all further relief deemed necessary and proper. 13. Venue is proper in this court pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 1391. B. The actions and omissions that are the subject of this complaint took place within the Northern District. Plaintiff Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund is located in the Oakland Division of the Northern District, and the Attorney General for the defendant state of California has an office in Oakland. Parties 14. Plaintiff E is 6 years old and lives in California with her family. She has Down syndrome and associated medical conditions, and qualifies as an individual with a disability for purposes of the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. She also qualifies for special education services on the basis of intellectual disability and has an individual education plan, IEP. Plaintiff brings this action through her parent and guardian ad litem, age 15. Plaintiff LN is 9 years old and lives in California with his family. He has multiple disabilities and qualifies as an individual with a disability for purposes of the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. He also qualifies for special education services on the basis of other health impairment and speech or language impairment. He is in the 4th grade and has an IEP. He brings this action through his parent and guardian ad litem, KN. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 6 of 31-7 et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 16. Plaintiff Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, DREDF, founded in 1979, is a national nonprofit civil rights law and policy center located in Berkeley, California, dedicated to protecting and advancing the civil rights of people with disabilities. DREDF is directed by individuals with disabilities and parents who have children with disabilities, and pursues its mission through education, advocacy, and law reform efforts. As a parent training and information center funded by the U.S. Department of Education, DREDF serves families of children with disabilities and disabled young adults in 33 California counties. The Parent Training Institute provides free assistance to families to help them understand their education rights, support their participation in special education processes at public schools, and resolve problems. DREDF provides training, technical assistance through phone and email, and referrals to support families on securing educational rights and entitlements under laws including the ADA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. DREDF also responds to calls and emails from across the state. 17. Since the amended Cal. Ed. Code Section 51745 went into effect, plaintiff DREDF has been forced to divert organizational resources to respond to a substantial number of contacts from families with children with disabilities who are heightened risk of complications if exposed to COVID-19.
DREDF staff have prepared Know Your Rights materials about independent study, but more has been required. DREDF has fielded increased numbers of calls from families are struggling to find a placement for their student with a disability that meets their students' educational needs and keeps them safe from COVID-19 and its effects. These families are reporting that they are being delayed and denied access to independent study based on disability, and are being told that they must waive educational rights to access the program. The families with students with disabilities who are contacting DREDF about their problems finding alternatives to in-person classes are DREDF's constituents 18. Defendant State of California is the legal and political entity with plenary responsibility for educating all California public school students, including the responsibility to establish and maintain the system of common schools and a free education, under Article 9, Section 5 of the California Constitution, and to assure that all California public school students Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 page 7 of 31 ADE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 received their individual and fundamental right to an equal education, under the Equal Protection Clauses of the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 7, and Article 4, Section 16 and 19. Defendant State Board of Education and its members are responsible for determining the policies governing California's schools and for adopting rules and regulations for the supervision and administration of all local school districts, pursuant to California Education Code Sections 33030-32. The State Board of Education is required to supervise local school districts to ensure that they comply with state and federal law requirements concerning educational services. 20. Defendant California Department of Education, CDE, is the Department of California's state government responsible for administering and enforcing laws related to education. Cal. Educ. Code Section 33308. Pursuant to California Education Code Sections 33300-16. CDE is also responsible for ensuring that children with disabilities in California receive a free appropriate public education. FAPE. 20 U.S.C. Section 1412. 1A, 11A, Class Allegations 21, pursuant to Rules 23, and 23B, 2, of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Student plaintiffs bring this action for injunctive and declaratory relief on their own behalf and on behalf of all similarly situated students. Student plaintiffs seek to represent the following class in this matter, pursuant to Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 23, and 23B, 2, as follows. All California students who, now or in the future, have an individual education plan and whose parent, guardian or education rights holder has determined that in-person instruction would put the student at risk. 22. This action is an appropriate class action under Rule 23B, 2, as the defendants have acted or refused to act on grounds that apply generally to the class, so that final injunctive relief or corresponding declaratory relief is appropriate. 23. The members of the class are so numerous that joinder of all such persons is impracticable. Approximately 721,000 students in California have disabilities and make up 11.7% of the school population. CDE California School Dashboard, https://www.casschooldashboard.org reports cost/2020. Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 page 8 of 31-9 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 24. Individual action by class members is impracticable. Class members face significant barriers to asserting their rights, including misinformation and intimidation from their school districts and their inability to join the state defendants and to assert ADA claims in administrative hearings. 25. There are questions of law and fact common to the class identified above, namely, A. By limiting the type of distance learning programs which local educational agencies may offer to a single format which is, by definition, inaccessible to most students with disabilities. The statute at issue discriminates against all class members. B. All members of the proposed class have been denied timely enrollment in independent study programs because of the requirement that an IEP be convened prior to allowing them to enroll. C. All members of the proposed class are denied equal access to independent study programs because the services, supports, and accommodations which they require to access them are being denied. D. All members of the proposed class have been denied the ability to access a public education program safely and in a manner that protects them from undue risk of adverse health consequences, which is equal to that afforded to their non-disabled peers. 26. The claims of the student plaintiffs are typical of the claims of the class, identified above, in that they are students with a disability and have an IEP and their parent or guardian has determined that in-person instruction will place them at risk. 27. The student plaintiffs are adequate class representatives because they suffer the same injury as other class members. They will fairly and adequately protect the interests of the class. The student plaintiffs do not have any interests antagonistic to the members of any class. The relief sought by plaintiffs will inure to the benefit to the members of each class. Case 321 CV 075858 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 9 of 3110 EE. Et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 28. Plaintiffs' counsel are experienced, skilled, and knowledgeable about special education, civil rights litigation, disability rights, and class action litigation. 29. Prosecution of separate actions by individual class members would create a risk of inconsistent or varying adjudication with respect to individual class members, which would establish incompatible standards of conduct for defendants or could be dispositive of the interests of the other members or substantially impair or impede the ability to protect their interests. 30. A class action is superior to other available methods for the fair and efficient adjudication of the controversy. A multiplicity of suits with consequent burden on the courts and defendants should be avoided. It would be impossible for all class members to intervene as parties in this action. Statement of facts. 31. In 2020, at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, California enacted new statutes to ensure that school districts offered students access to distance learning. Cal. Educ. Code Section 43500 et sec. Under this program, distance learning shall include academic and other supports designed to address the needs of pupils who are not performing at grade level, or need support in other areas, such as English learners, pupils with exceptional needs, pupils in foster care or experiencing homelessness, and pupils requiring mental health supports. ID Section 43503, B. 3. Emphasis added 32. Consequently, in the 2020-21 school year, students with IEPs had distance learning plans that explained how their school district would provide the supports and related services they needed to learn. Some disabled students, such as plaintiffs E and LN, adapted to distance learning and made educational progress. 33. The distance learning provisions that California adopted in 2020 had a sunset date of June 30, 2021. ID. Section 43511. 34. In July 2021, California adopted a new statute that allowed funding for distance learning only for students enrolled in the state's independent study program. Assembly Bill AB 130, Chapter 44, Statutes of 2021, approved on July 9, 2021. The new statute provides Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 10 of 3111 EE. Et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28. That independent study will be offered to students whose health would be put at risk by in-person instruction, as determined by the parent or guardian of the pupil. Cal. Educ. Code Section 51745. 6. No funding is available to school districts to provide distance learning other than through independent study. 35. However, The new statute also provides that students with disabilities shall not participate in independent study unless the pupil's individualized education program IEP specifically provides for that participation. IDE Section 51745. C. Emphasis added. Cal. Eduk. Code Section 57149.5. 7. Includes similar language. An individual with exceptional needs, as defined in Section 56026, shall not participate in course-based independent study unless the pupil's IEP developed pursuant to the state special education statute specifically provides for that participation. 36. As the Delta variant surged in California and the beginning of school approached, more parents and caregivers determined that their children were at risk from in-person classes. Due to the new state law, the only way to access the distance learning these families had in the 2020-21 school year was through independent study. 37. Families of disabled children with IEP plans have faced multiple barriers to accessing distance learning through independent study. These include an outright denial of independent study, b. an offer of distance learning but without the services and accommodations that the student needs to learn and which were previously included in their distance learning plans, and c. long delays in convening required IEPs that leave families in limbo for weeks and months. Plaintiffs and other similarly situated children are denied the alternatives to in-person classes available to non-disabled students. 38. Plaintiff E is 6 years old and has Down syndrome, an intellectual disability with associated medical conditions. Her IEP provides extensive services such as a full-time behavior aid and speech, language and occupational therapy. E has a twin sister who is typically developing and does not have a disability. Like many other children with Down syndrome, E is at higher risk of health complications if exposed to COVID-19. So the twins. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 11 of 3112 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Mother, age A, requested distance learning for both children. The school district approved independent study for her non-disabled twin, but required prior approval from EE's IEP team. At the IEP meeting, district staff said that EE would lose all her support services if she enrolled in independent study. When AJ protested that EE needed these to learn, school staff said her only choice was to take EE to in-person classes, regardless of the risk. Because of this impasse, EE has been home with no access to classes since school began. In contrast, her non-disabled twin has been enrolled in independent study from the beginning. 39. Plaintiff LN is 9 years old and has developmental disabilities secondary to significant medical conditions. He is at extreme risk of complications if he contracts COVID-19. During the 2020 to 2021 school year, LN was able to safely access his educational program through distance learning, and his mother believed this would continue in current school year. But shortly before the school year began, she was informed that an IEP meeting had to be convened prior to his enrollment and that, even if LN qualified for independent study, he would not receive any of his special education services. A meeting was convened on the first day of school but ended without the district making an offer of faith. District staff suggested that KN obtain a doctor's note authorizing home hospital instruction for her son, but cautioned that if approved, he would not receive any of his IEP services and only 1 hour a day of instruction. To date, the school district has not offered a date to reconvene LN's IEP, and has not offered any form of interim instruction. School staff have also told KN that they expect her son to attend school in person until his IEP is held, despite their acknowledgement that it is not safe for him to do so because of his medical conditions. 40. On August 25, 2021, LN's mother watched a virtual town hall and recorded webinar from LN's school district about independent study. District staff stated that students with special needs were unlikely to qualify, but to request an IEP meeting to see if their child was an exception to this general rule. School staff also said that none of the required IEP meetings would be held prior to school starting, since the district had 30 days to convene the IEP meeting after the start of school. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 12 of 3113 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 41. Other similarly situated disabled students face the same barriers to distance learning as do the student plaintiffs. These children and their families are all constituents of DREDF and its Special Education Advocacy. AMG is 10 years old and in the 5th grade in a California school district. He has Down syndrome. His IEP provides educational supports, including access to an alternative curriculum, so that he was able to participate successfully in distance learning last year. MG's disability and additional respiratory problems put him at higher risk of health complications if exposed to COVID-19, and he is too young to be vaccinated. His mother asked for distance learning as an alternative to in-person classes. The IEP team told her that the only option was independent study, but that they could not provide the alternative curriculum that her son needs as an accommodation. He attends the same school district as plaintiff LN, and his parents saw the same recorded webinar from their school district. District staff advised the public that independent study is the only alternative to in-person classes, but it is only for students who can follow a general education curriculum and who only need a general education teacher, not a special education teacher or other special education service provider. Without an agreement on distance learning, MG has been home for a month with no instruction or services. BRC has autism and other medical conditions that place him at higher risk of health complications if exposed to COVID-19, so his parent wants him to continue in distance learning. He has an IEP and attended a non-public school last year that offered him an alternative curriculum and additional supports during distance learning. His school was ready to provide him distance learning when classes resumed in August 2021. Instead, the school district intervened, saying that RC could not continue in distance learning at the non-public school that had served him so well. His IEP team eventually met but refused to approve independent study or distance learning with her son's previous non-public case 321 CV07585 AGT document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 13 of 3114 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 school. RC is still at home with no educational services. CHH is 21 years old and has autism, cerebral palsy, and other disabilities. She also has a tracheostomy tube for tracheomalacia and chronic lung disease. Through her IEP, she was able to participate successfully in distance learning last year through a non-public school that offers an alternative curriculum. When she started back to school remotely in August 2021, her classes were canceled after one day. Her school explained that the state education agency would not allow non-public schools, which are only for students with disabilities, to offer virtual options. Later, the district agreed that HH could enroll in very limited distance learning hours through independent study or home hospital but without any of the services in her IEP. HH has now been at home with no educational programming for almost a month. DKH is 13 years old and has cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and additional disabilities. She has a history of pneumonia due to her disabilities. She also struggles to consistently wear a face mask. She is at increased risk of severe outcomes from exposure to COVID-19. With adaptations to schoolwork and a one-to-one aid para-educator through her IEP, she was able to participate successfully in distance learning last year. KH's school district is offering independent study through a virtual academy that allows students to customize remote classes. KH's parent wanted KH to participate in the virtual academy with her non-disabled peers, and requested an IEP. The IEP team refused to allow KH to enroll in the virtual academy, and said that her only option is home hospital instruction, a program in which she would have no interaction with non-disabled peers. EMC has Down syndrome and is immunocompromised, with a low count of white blood cells and infection-fighting cells. With modifications to the curriculum and a one-to-one aid, MC was able to participate successfully in distance learning last school year. For 2021-22, the family requested distance learning continue through independent study. When the district finally held in case 321 CV07585 AGT document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 14 of 3115 EE,
et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 IEP meeting. The IEP team found that MC could not learn independently. The district refused to place him in independent study. At this point, MC has been in limbo for more than a month, without any access to direct educational instruction or services, waiting to see if the district approves any other alternative to in-person classes. The design of independent study excludes students with intellectual and developmental disabilities 42. The design of independent study excludes students who need adult assistance to learn. Many children with more severe disabilities fall into this category, including those intellectual and developmental disabilities such as autism and Down syndrome. According to data from Defendant CDE, more than 150,000 students are eligible for special education based on autism or intellectual disability. California Department of Education, Special Education, CalEd Facts, https://www.cde.ca.gov/SPCSR 43. For example, the IEP team for plaintiff EE refused to approve her for independent study because she needs significant adult support to learn. Many school district IEP teams across the state are refusing to approve independent study on this basis for other similarly situated students 44. CDE supports this restriction in its independent study FAQ web page, which states, pupils in independent study shall have the ability to work independently and maintain satisfactory educational progress as defined under the California Education Code. Further, success in independent study requires motivation and a strong commitment on the part of the student then, especially for a young student, his or her parents, guardians, caregivers. It also requires sufficient academic preparation to enable the student to work independently. California Department of Education, Independent Study, Frequently Asked Questions, updated August 23, 2021, https://www.cde.ca.gov/SPEO is FACASP 45. Other districts also take the position that students who need adult assistance to learn are not eligible for independent study. One FAQ from a virtual office hours with the Los Angeles County Office of Education on September 7, 2021, states flatly, question, how Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 page 15 of 3116 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Can a very involved student in a self-contained class requiring a one-on-one assistant independently be recommended for an independent study program? Answer: the IEP team will need to make the determination. However, the term independent study implies that a child will be able to complete the work independently or with minimal adult help. Defendant CDE arranged this office hours session and endorsed this FAQ 46. Since independent study is the only way to access distance learning, this framework excludes students who need adult supports and other accommodations to learn, such as those with intellectual and developmental disabilities 47. The design of independent study also excludes disabled students who require a modified curriculum. Many students with moderate to severe disabilities, including many with intellectual and developmental disabilities, cannot access the state's Common Core General Education curriculum without modifications, and receive instruction based on alternative achievement standards, or an alternate curriculum. 34 CFR Section 200.1 D. Such curricula are D. Assigned for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, ID 48. However, the new California law on independent study provides that it is only designed to teach the knowledge and skills of the core curriculum. Independent study shall not be provided as an alternative curriculum. Cal. Educ. Code Section 51745, 3, 49. For example, Plaintiff LN's large urban school district announced in a town hall meeting that independent study will only offer the general education curriculum without any special education services. Many other students with IEPs have been denied independent study because they are on an alternate curriculum. See, e.g., paragraph 41.
Supra, Re, MC, student with Down syndrome, RC, student with autism, HH, student with autism and cerebral palsy, no state guidance. Re, denial of accommodations in independent study. 50. California's implementation of independent study permits school districts to enroll disabled students on the condition that they give up their rights to accommodations, including their rights under IDEA. Under the earlier distance learning statute in effect in the 2020-21 school year, each student had a distance learning plan that listed the accommodations. Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 16 of 3117 EE. Et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28. They needed. IEP teams are refusing to offer these same services through independent study. These IEP teams make a single offer of a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, which is through in-person classes only. 51. If families insist that their child needs distance learning, districts are offering independent study but without the services listed in the student's IEP. In one-sided negotiations, districts often compel families to sign agreements waiving their rights under IDEA and the ADA as a condition of participating in independent study. 52. Plaintiff DREDF and other groups that assist with special education issues have been contacted by and advised numerous families who report that they have been forced to sign such waivers. 53. One local school board has developed a standard waiver agreement that it announced publicly as a proposed solution for students when the IEP team refuses to offer distance learning. The agreement is that the student can participate in the school district's virtual academy, independent study, but the student's educational rights holder waives all FAPE claims. Since the IEP team determined independent study is not FAPE. 154, CDE has issued minimal guidance regarding independent study and students with IEPs. This guidance only reiterates that a student's IEP team must determine if independent study is appropriate. It fails to ensure that school districts offer disabled students equal access to distance learning through independent study or other means. 55. CDE has endorsed the use of home hospital instruction as an alternative workaround for disabled students. This is an option under California law for students who have a temporary disability that makes attendance in the regular day classes or alternative education program impossible or inadvisable. Cal. Eduk. Code Section 48206.3. IEP teams can place students with disabilities on home hospital instruction but only with a report from a medical provider stating the diagnosed condition and certifying that the severity of the condition prevents the 1C Pleasanton USD Board. Materials. September 23, 2021. Available from https://simbly.edwardsolutions.com/sb_meetings/view meeting. Aspects $equals 3603038 ampersand mid equals 8254 https://simbly.edwardsolutions.com/meetings/attachment. Aspects $equals 3603038 ampersand 8 equals 168845 ampersand MID equals 8254 case 321 CV 07585. AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 17 of 31. 18 EE. Et al. V. State of California. Et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 pupil from attending a less restrictive placement. Cal. Code Regs. TID 5. Section 3051.4. D56. Home hospital instruction is not a workable alternative for students with IEPs who are denied access to or accommodations in independent study. Plaintiff LN School District held a virtual town hall in which school staff estimated that only 40 children would qualify for home hospital instruction, out of more than 9,000 students with disabilities. School staff also told LN's mother that home hospital instruction was only for students who would miss school temporarily, for up to 6 weeks. 57. Even those students approved for home hospital instruction received little benefit. Most districts offer home hospital instruction for only 1 hour per day, which is the minimum required in the statute. Cal. Eduk.
Code Section 48206.3, C, 1, LN. As example is typical, his school district told his parent that, even if he qualified, he would get only 1 hour of instruction per day. School districts are also telling families that students in home hospital instruction will receive few or none of the services in the child's IEP. The mother of plaintiff LN was repeatedly told by school personnel that he will not be provided any of his special education services and supports if he is approved for the home hospital program 58. Home hospital is also more isolating because it provides no opportunity for interaction with non-disabled peers. For example, the school district where student KH attends has arranged for a virtual academy for the many students who are choosing independent study. The IEP team for student KH would not approve the virtual academy and instead referred her to home hospital instruction. Her mother has not agreed, because home hospital does not provide the opportunity for interaction with non-disabled peers that the virtual academy does. Interaction with friends and peers is critical to emotional and social growth for children with disabilities. No rationale for giving disabled students fewer protections in independent study versus distance learning or quarantines 59. The state treated students with disabilities far better during distance learning and in emergency quarantines, both of which mandate special education rights. From March 2020, June 2021, the state guaranteed that students with disabilities could participate in distance Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 18 of 3119 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Learning with special education and related services required by the student's IEP. Cal. Educ. Code Section 43503, B. 4. Cal. Educ. Code Section 43511, B. The state also required all IEPs include a plan for service delivery in the event of qualifying emergencies where schools cannot deliver services in person. Cal. Educ. Code Section 56345, 9, 60. Now, the state requires that students with disabilities who quarantine may participate in independent study and must have access to their distance learning emergency plan. Cal. Educ. Code Section 46393. This already existing distance learning system for quarantine students demonstrates that it is a reasonable modification to provide distance learning to all students with disabilities. There is no justifiable rationale for denying this to students who are not quarantined but still need distance learning to ensure their health and safety from the pandemic. Discriminatory delays in accessing distance learning 61. Disabled students also face discriminatory delays in enrollment. Such delays are inevitable given that the independent study law requires that an IEP team be convened to consider the request for independent study before any student with an IEP can be enrolled. This process can take up to 30 days and has caused many students with disabilities to miss the first weeks of school. Some students are still awaiting an IEP team meeting. More than a month after the start of school, non-disabled students were permitted to register immediately, did not face this delay, and were not denied an education while waiting for a meeting. For students who were permitted by their IEP teams to enroll in independent study, this built-in delay resulted in disabled students registering for independent study later than non-disabled students, thereby increasing the odds that they would end up on waiting lists for access to independent study 62. In addition, with independent study, students do not have the benefit of stay put, the IDEA provision that enables students to remain in their placement until a dispute is resolved. The new law explicitly bans students from participating in independent study until they have an IEP that specifically provides for that participation. Cal. Educ. Code Section 51745. See Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 19 of 3120 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Plaintiffs will suffer irreparable injury 63. The student plaintiffs. DREDF constituents and other similarly situated children face irreparable injury from defendants' actions if they fail to attend in-person classes. This can include truancy citations and hearings, loss of educational progress and isolation from their peers. 64. However, attending in-person classes is an even greater threat. The student plaintiffs and other similarly situated students have underlying or associated medical conditions that place them at much higher risk from a COVID-19 infection. All people with serious underlying chronic medical conditions like chronic lung disease, a serious heart condition, or a weakened immune system seem to be more likely to get severely ill from COVID-19. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. The student plaintiffs and others profiled here display all these characteristics. Many children, such as Plaintiff E, have Down syndrome and are at risk of serious, life-threatening complications from COVID. 19.3 About half of all children with Down syndrome have heart defects that also diminish lung capacity. 4 Other students who need independent study have asthma and lung disease. According to the CDC, people with moderate to severe asthma are also more likely to get severely ill from COVID-19. 565 A return to in-person classes poses a serious risk of infection for these students, many of whom are too young to be vaccinated. Unfortunately, schools across the state continue to experience COVID-19 outbreaks and exposure of thousands of students statewide. 6 The risk to CDC, COVID-19 information and resources, https://www.cdc.gov/ncbddd Human Development COVID-19 People with Disabilities HTML3 National Down Syndrome Society, the Heart and Down Syndrome, https://www.ndss.org Resources The Heart Down Syndrome. Heart defects in children with Down syndrome led to narrowed arteries in the lungs and increased pressure and constriction of blood flow. 5 CDC, COVID-19 information and resources, https://www.cdc.gov Coronavirus/2019 COVID need extra precautions people with medical conditions HTML6C, e.g., Los Angeles Times, coronavirus outbreaks in LA schools increase, September 2nd, 2021, https://www.latimes.com California Story September 2nd, 2021 La County coronavirus outbreaks, increase in LA County schools, Los Angeles Times, tracking the coronavirus in LAUSD case 321 CV07585 AGT document 1 filed September 28, 2021 page 20 of 3121 E. Et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 of exposure to COVID-19 during in-person classes is real, even with masks. 66. The student plaintiffs and DREDF constituents described above are also irreparably injured by their forced absence from their school program. Research shows that absences from school have a disproportionate impact on student well-being, even after a short period of time. 7 Although many students struggled with distance learning in the 2020-21 school year, others made educational progress, including the student plaintiffs and other similarly situated DREDF constituents. Their distance learning plans were effective in delivering the services in their IEP plans. Consequently, the interruption of their access to distance learning, whether through independent study or other means, has left them far behind where they would otherwise be. 67. Home hospital instruction, if offered to some students, does very little to ameliorate the injury they experience, especially as compared to more robust distance learning programs they had last school year, or to independent study. At least through independent study, students have access to some live-in classroom-style instruction. Cal. Eduk. Code Section 51747, E68. The student plaintiffs, DREDF constituents and others similarly situated are irreparably injured, even though they have the right to seek compensatory education in the form of in-kind educational services through the state special education administrative appeal schools. September 26, 2021, https://www.latimes.com Projects Lost COVID-19 Cases Tracking Spread Outbreaks. There are currently 12 schools under investigation for an outbreak. which is defined as 3 or more cases transmitted at school over 14 days. In total, 502 of the 888 campuses on the district's dashboard have an active case. 57% of the total. Ed source. COVID closes rural California schools as Delta variant spreads. September 3rd, 2021. https://edsource.org/2021/ COVID closes rural California schools as Delta variant spreads /660,712. CBS News. More schools closing due to COVID outbreaks. September 6, 2012. https://sacramento.cbsloccal.com/09/06/2021/COVID-outbreaks. Schools closing. EdSource. COVID testing was supposed to keep schools safe. What happened? September 7th, 2021. https://edsource.org/2021/ COVID testing was supposed to keep schools safe. What happened? /660,721 shortages of testing and inconsistent protocols led to outbreaks and quarantine 7C, e.g., attendance works. Key research. Why attendance matters for achievement and how interventions can help. 2016. Available from https://awareness.attendanceworks.org WP Content Uploads Research 2016 PDF. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 page 21 of 3122 EE. Et al. V. State of California. Et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 System. Parents of student WV Puyallup SCH. Dist number 3, 31F, 3D 1489, 1496-97, 9th Sir, 1994. This remedy cannot restore the time that these children have lost. With limited hours in the day, children can only absorb so much at one time. More services later will not make up for the lost weeks of education that these children have and will continue to experience. 69. Plaintiff DREDF is also irreparably injured by defendant's actions, including from the diversion of resources required to respond to families facing barriers to distance learning, and by the harmful impact on DREDF's constituents. First cause of action: violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. 42 U.S.C. Section 12131, et sec. 70. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference every allegation contained in the foregoing paragraph. 71. Congress enacted the ADA, 42 U.S.C. Section 12101 et sec., to provide a clear and comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities and to provide strong and consistent standards for identifying such discrimination. 42 U.S.C. Section 12101, b. 1, and 2, 72. The ADA is based on Congress's findings that, inter alia, historically, society has tended to isolate and segregate individuals with disabilities, and, despite some improvements, such forms of discrimination against individuals with disabilities continue to be a serious and pervasive social problem. 42 U.S.C. Section 12101. 2. In addition, individuals with disabilities continually encounter various forms of discrimination, including relegation to lesser services, programs, activities, benefits, jobs, or other opportunities. 42 U.S.C. Section 12101, 5, 73. In enacting the ADA, Congress also found that discrimination against individuals with disabilities persists in such critical areas as education. 42 U.S.C. Section 12101, 3, 74. Title II of the ADA mandates that no qualified individual with a disability shall, by reason of such disability, be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of the services, programs, or activities of a public entity, or be subjected to discrimination by any such case. 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021 page 22 of 3123 EE. Et al. V. State of California. Et al. Case No.
Complained 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Entity 42 USC Section 12132. See also 28 CFR Section 35.130, 75. Title II of the ADA applies to all of the activities of public entities, including providing education. Each defendant is either a public entity subject to Title II of the ADA or an official responsible for supervising the operations of a public entity subject to Title II of the ADA. 42 USC Section 12131, 1, 76. The ADA directs the Attorney General to promulgate regulations enforcing Title II of the ADA and provides guidance on their content. The regulations promulgated by the Attorney General require public entities to make reasonable modifications to their programs and services when the modifications are necessary to avoid discrimination. 28 CFR Section 35.130, B. 7, 77. The regulations also specify that it is unlawful discrimination for a public entity to afford a qualified individual with a disability an opportunity to participate in or benefit from the aid, benefit, or service that is not equal to that afforded others. 28 CFR Section 35.130, B. 1, 2. Provide a qualified individual with a disability with an aid, benefit, or service that is not as effective in affording equal opportunity to obtain the same result, to gain the same benefit, or to reach the same level of achievement as that provided to others. 28 CFR Section 35.130, B. 1, 3. Fail to administer services, programs, and activities in the most integrated setting appropriate to the needs of qualified individuals with disabilities. 28 CFR, Section 35.130, D, which the Attorney General has defined as a setting that enables individuals with disabilities to interact with non-disabled persons to the fullest extent possible. 28 CFR Part 35 Ab. A. Page 450 or U. Utilize criteria or methods of administration T. Have the purpose or effect of defeating or substantially impairing accomplishment of the objectives of the public entity's program with respect to individuals with Case 321 CV 07585. AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 23 of 31. 24 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Disabilities. 28 CFR Section 35.130, B. 3, 2, 78. Plaintiff CE and LN are qualified individuals with a disability within the meaning of the ADA. Both have disabilities that substantially limit one of more major life activities, including communication, cognitive functioning, ability to learn and developing and maintaining relationships. 79. As school-aged children, both are qualified to participate in defendants' educational programs and services. 42 USC Section 12131, 2, 80. Defendant State of California, the State Board of Education and the California Department of Education are all public entities, IES, within the meaning of Title II of the ADA. 81. During the 2020-21 school year, the student plaintiffs were able to participate safely in a virtual classroom with their non-disabled peers through distance learning, and made educational progress. However, because of their disabilities, they require accommodations and modifications to access educational materials. 82. Defendants have administered the state's independent study program so as to discriminate against and exclude the student plaintiffs and others similarly situated. 83. The state's discriminatory independent study program directly resulted in the student plaintiffs' unequal access to the benefits of a public education, and which denied them and others similarly situated from equal opportunities to benefit from their education. 84. The injury experienced by the student plaintiffs and others similarly situated due to their exclusion from distance learning and from safe alternatives to in-person instruction is directly traceable to defendants' administration of the state educational program, its adoption of a discriminatory independent study program, and its failure to ensure that defendants and other school districts comply with the ADA. 85. Under the ADA,
Public entities are liable for discrimination in the programs they administer, even if they are not directly engaged with the disabled individuals who participate in these programs. The ADA applies to all services, programs, and activities provided or made available by public entities. 28 CFR 35.102. Emphasis added Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 24 of 3125 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 86. Here, defendants have made available public educational services through their local educational agencies. A public entity, in providing any aid, benefit, or service, may not, directly or through contractual, licensing, or other arrangements, on the basis of disability discriminate against individuals with disabilities. 28 CFR Section 35.130, B. 1. Emphasis added 87. Further, a public entity may not hide or perpetuate discrimination by providing significant assistance to an agency, organization, or person that discriminates on the basis of disability in providing any aid, benefit, or service to beneficiaries of the public entity's program. 28 CFR Section 35.130, B. 1, V. 88. Under state and federal law, CDE is responsible for the oversight and supervision of local school districts. 20 U.S.C. Section 1412, 11, A. 34 CFR Section 300.149, see also Cal. Ed Code Section 56,100 and 56,205, 89. Defendants, including CDE, have failed to instruct the local school districts that they oversee about the application of the ADA to independent study, including their obligation to provide needed accommodations to enable disabled students to participate in the public educational programs they offer. 90. Defendants have adopted a method of administration that results in discrimination by local education agencies in access to distance learning and the denial of safe alternatives to in-person learning, and by its failure to monitor and supervise local districts, which are part of its educational program. 91. In addition, defendants' independent study program perpetuates discrimination by local districts, which also provide services to the disabled students who are beneficiaries of California's public education program. 92. CDE has failed to ensure that the local school districts that it oversees comply with the ADA regarding distance learning and independent study. 93. Through its acts and omissions described above, defendants are violating the ADA with regard to the student plaintiffs and others similarly situated by denying them an opportunity to participate in and benefit from educational services that is equal to that afforded other students. Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 25 of 3126. E. Et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 failing to provide educational services that are as effective in affording equal opportunity to obtain the same result, gain the same benefit, or reach the same level of achievement as that provided other students, denying the opportunity to receive educational programs and services in the most integrated setting appropriate to their needs, failing to reasonably modify its programs and services as needed to avoid discrimination, utilizing methods of administration that have the effect of defeating or substantially impairing the accomplishment of the objectives of defendants' educational programs, and perpetuating the discrimination of local school districts. 94. Other district courts in California have held defendant CDE accountable for discriminatory actions by school districts, including violations of the ADA. Emma C. v. Easton, 985 F. Sup. 940, 948, ND, Cal. 1997. There, the court found that CDE failed to monitor the district's compliance with state and federal laws, denied the state's motion to dismiss, and found that the complaint adequately alleged that the state agency perpetuated this discrimination. 95. Congress specifically provided for a private right of action to enforce Title II, 42 U.S.C. Section 12133 incorporating the remedies and enforcement procedures available under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which includes a private right of action 96. The Title II regulations upon which plaintiffs rely were promulgated at the specific direction of Congress and do not impose obligations beyond the reach of Title II, 42 U.S.C. Section 12134, and 97. As a result of defendants' actions and inaction, plaintiffs and others similarly situated have suffered injury, including, but not limited to, denial of meaningful access to the benefits of a public education. As a direct and proximate result of the aforementioned acts, the student plaintiffs have suffered, and continue to suffer, loss of equal educational opportunity, denial of their access to appropriate programs, accommodations, modifications, services, and Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 26 of 3127 EE, et al. v. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Access required for plaintiffs' disabilities, and its exclusion of student plaintiffs 98. Plaintiff DREDF has also suffered injury from the diversion of its limited resources to respond to the consequences of defendants' actions and inaction 99. Because defendants' discriminatory and wrongful conduct is ongoing, declaratory and injunctive relief are appropriate remedies. Further, as a direct result of defendants' actions, plaintiffs and others similarly situated continue to suffer harm, and therefore speedy and immediate relief is appropriate. 100. Plaintiff seeks injunctive and declaratory relief, damages and attorney's fees and costs as a result. Second cause of action, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. 29 U.S.C. Section 794, a 101. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference each and every allegation contained in the foregoing paragraphs. 102. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 provides in relevant part, no otherwise qualified individual with a disability shall, solely by reason of her or his disability, be excluded from the participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. 29 U.S.C. Section 794, a 103. The regulations implementing Section 504 provide protections that parallel those under the ADA. 45 CFR Section 84.4, B, 84.21, 84.52, 104. All defendants are recipients of federal financial assistance within the meaning of Section 504 and its implementing regulations. 105. Special education services are a program or activity receiving federal financial assistance because defendants receive federal financial assistance for these services. 106. The student plaintiffs are qualified individuals with disabilities within the meaning of Section 504. They have impairments that limit their life activities. They are otherwise qualified to participate in and receive benefits from defendants' programs and services. 29 U.S.C. Section 794, B. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 27 of 3128 EE, et al. v. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 107. At all times relevant, defendants received federal financial assistance for the public educational services and programs they provide. 108. Under Section 504, a qualified individual with a disability may not, solely by reason of his/her disability, be subjected to discrimination, excluded from participation in, or denied the benefits of, any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. 29 U.S.C. Section 794, a 109. Under Section 504, the phrase program or activity includes state and local educational agency. 29 U.S.C. Section 794, B. 2, B. 110. Recipients of federal financial assistance are prohibited from denying a qualified person with a disability any health, welfare, or other social services or benefits on the basis of disability. 45 CFR Section 84.52,
111. Recipients of federal financial assistance may not afford a qualified individual with a disability an opportunity to receive health, welfare, or other social services or benefits that is not equal to that afforded people without disabilities. 45 CFR Section 84.52. 2. 112. Recipients of federal financial assistance may not, on the basis of disability, provide a qualified person with a disability health, welfare, or other social services or benefits that are not as effective as the benefits or services provided to others. 45 CFR Section 84.52. 3. 113. Recipients of federal financial assistance may not provide any health, welfare, or other social services or benefits in a manner that limits or has the effect of limiting the participation of qualified individuals with disabilities. 45 CFR Section 84.52. 4. 114. Recipients of federal financial assistance must ensure that the aids, benefits and services provided afford handicapped persons equal opportunity to obtain the same result, to gain the same benefit, or to reach the same level of achievement. 34 CFR Section 104.4, B. 2. 115. Recipients of federal financial assistance may not, p. provide a qualified handicapped person with an aid, benefit, or service that is not as effective as that provided to others. IDAT Section 104.4, B. 1, 3, and may not, afford a qualified handicapped person an opportunity to participate in or benefit from the aid, benefit, or service that is not equal to that afforded others. IDAT Section 104.4, B. 1, 2. See also 34 CFR Section 104.43 and 104.44. Case 321 CV07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 28 of 31. 29 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 116. Like the regulations implementing the ADA, the regulations implementing Section 504 also prohibit discriminatory methods of administration. A recipient may not, directly or through contractual or other arrangements, utilize criteria or methods of administration, that have the effect of subjecting qualified handicapped persons to discrimination on the basis of handicap. 2. That have the purpose or effect of defeating or substantially impairing accomplishment of the objectives of the recipient's program or activity with respect to handicapped persons. Or 3. That perpetuate the discrimination of another recipient if both recipients are subject to common administrative control or are agencies of the same state. 34 CFR Section 104.4, B. 4. 45 CFR Section 84.4, B. 4. 117. Defendants have violated Section 504 by adopting and implementing a new independent study law that discriminates against the student plaintiffs and other students with disabilities. 118. Defendants have adopted methods of administering this statute that result in and perpetuate discrimination, that exclude plaintiffs from participation in distance learning and safe alternatives to in-person learning, and that provide them with a benefit that is not equal to and less effective than that provided to others. 119. Defendants violated Section 504 through adopting, approving and implementing a practice that the only alternative to in-person learning is independent study, a practice that results in discrimination against students with disabilities, and by failing to oversee local school districts to ensure that they do not discriminate. 120. Defendants have adopted methods of administration that result in discrimination by local education agencies in the provision of safe alternatives to in-person learning, and by allowing districts to deny students accommodations in independent study. Defendants have failed to monitor and supervise local districts, which are part of its educational program. 121. In addition, defendants' independent study program perpetuates discrimination by local districts, which are also agencies of the state of California within the meaning of Section 504. C. E.g., MSC v. Easton, 985 F. Sup. 940, 948, N.D., Cal. 1997.
holding that a recipient of federal funds discriminates on the basis of disability when it perpetuates Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 29 of 3130 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 Discrimination by providing assistance to another entity that in turn discriminates 122. Defendants committed the acts and omissions alleged herein with intent and/or deliberate indifference to plaintiffs' rights, particularly given the length of time the problems persisted and the severity of the problems. 123. The student plaintiffs and others similarly situated suffered injury in fact, including, but not limited to, denial of meaningful access to the benefits of a public education. As a direct and proximate result of the aforementioned acts, plaintiffs have suffered, and continues to suffer, loss of equal educational opportunity. Plaintiff DREDF has suffered injury in fact as a result of the diversion of its resources to respond to defendants' illegal acts. 124. Because defendants' discriminatory and wrongful conduct is ongoing, declaratory and injunctive relief are appropriate remedies. Further, as a direct result of defendants' actions, plaintiffs are suffering irreparable harm and therefore speedy and immediate relief is appropriate. 125. Plaintiffs seek injunctive and declaratory relief, damages and attorneys' fees and costs as a result. Prayer for relief. Plaintiffs pray this court to enter judgment and provides the following relief. 1. A declaration that defendants' conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, 42 U.S.C. Section 12101, et Second 28 CFR Section 35.104, 36.104, the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as amended. 29 U.S.C. Section 794 et sec. Section 504. 2. An order certifying the class set out above. 3. An injunction ordering defendants to comply with Title II of the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and to ensure that their contractors, agents and assign also comply. 4. An injunction requiring defendants to establish a process for providing compensatory education in an amount to be determined by proof, including but not limited to damages under 42 U.S.C. Section 12133, 29 U.S.C. Section 794, including all applicable statutory damages to plaintiffs and class members. Case 321 CV 07585 AGT Document 1 filed September 28, 2021, page 30 of 3131 EE, et al. V. State of California, et al. Case No. Complaint 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 5. Any other such damages as may be allowed under all the above federal and state law. 6. Plaintiffs' reasonable attorneys' fees and costs incurred in litigating both the administrative due process complaint and the instant action, including, but not limited to, fees arising under 42 U.S.C. Section.
So we stop sharing and we're going to actually just turn the camera on because we can. And, just talking about what we should be concerned about as this is 2024. And you have to understand that it is we, the people, that have not managed to get to the table until now. And now we are at the table. What does that mean? Failure should not be an option in America, but because across this nation, failure has just been accepted. And I don't know why. Not all parents allow their children to receive the letter grade of F, but it's the mere unfortunate circumstances that bring this to our attention across this nation, as this is a nationwide issue. And that we now have a African American, well, she's not even African American, it doesn't matter, a person of color that is sitting in the White House as the Vice President of America. And here in Nevada, we have an Attorney General and a Congress member that is African American. And perhaps we need to talk about what's on the table here. equal access, as the 13th and the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of these United States of America afford us the ability, and I'm like my hair, it really doesn't matter. It's just sometimes you just wish you could just shave it off, but not always. So therefore, I wanted to share that complaint. Why? Because I felt it was important in regards to understanding that it is we, the people, and we must show up. What does showing up look like? Understand me when I say that I've always shown up, and it is easier to show up than to just accept the failure of public services that has been bestowed upon us as people in America. We just need to understand who we are and what it is that we are doing in America. That's just real. And supposedly I'm live over here on YouTube, but I don't know because there is I'm trying to get to the part where I would be, oh, I am there. I can see myself. And so anyways, I've shared so much information. If you just go to my what is it, Spotify now? No, it's Riverside, but you would get there through the original Anchor program, which is Parent Empowerment Half an Hour, and they moved it to Spotify, which moved to Riverside, and who really cares? I mean, the whole thing is that I'm asking people to show up in regards to understanding that adequacy is key. And then if your child doesn't have equal access, if that becomes an issue in America, and what kind of issue could it be? Well, unfortunately, we just need to understand that the issue is sustainability. How does one be denied access continually? And then these people have written it to where if they run out of money, that okay, the school doesn't get anything. And I'm saying, you have to do it until the money runs out? Huh? No, because the law still affects you. That zero tolerance, that, attendance rules. And even if you don't have a place to live or a place to lay your head or a place to change your clothes, the attendance laws still affect you. But in normal cities, I would say these cities are functional, where people are demanding a level of accountability. And then some unfortunate reason here in Nevada, where they have so much money and then so little services. And you can see in that complaint, even the community partners who were involved in, perhaps not making a way for the people are being held accountable. So if you have accepted a grant to do something and you know that it's bigger than what you can actually do, then, hey, no, the responsibility is still on the state to figure it out. Access key, but access is everything. And I'm just trying to understand, as I'm living in Viva Las Vegas, and there's so many people on Regency, and that Regency word I never really understood, but they're on display on the strip. And if they've ever been able to become famous, well, these are seeds that are sown, and the harvest is reaped by the individual who has been given the gift, and perhaps the people who were sharing the gift. But for the people who are represented, like the African American people or the historical American Black person that was brought here against their will. And what are we supposed to say? I don't know anything about that. I ain't never been no slave. And so, as I've never been a slave, I'm just trying to understand what it is I should be thinking when law enforcement would be called to come and assure someone safety, but come in and shoot them in the face and lie about their safety. And I'm saying, oh, bullshit. See, this thing about policing people's behavior has gotten out of control, as there are no services that have been established nationwide that would help you change or engage or, seek another option other than what you've chosen, the bad response. And I'm saying, okay, enough is enough. I have this MacBook A1 technology, and I'm just telling you, I paid a lot of money for this MacBook, just like I paid a lot of money for my Apple phone. And this is the quality that you get. And it is just what it is because you have to go through all these third-party providers. And then somehow their app takes over, and then other apps are all on top of your bag. And, other people, it is past 8:34. I can actually stream live on Facebook because I was restricted. And what does that mean? I don't know. Because somehow I didn't got a new daddy out here in this ethos, a new manager. I mean, this is the closest to slavery I've ever been because they can just simply punish you and you don't have no recourse. And they just do it all the time at will. You have been restricted. You are punished. Oh, oh, oh. People with power. And it's disgusting because it doesn't change who we are, as we know who we are. We're just ordinary Americans who, for the most part, get along and who, for the most part, have expectations of mandatory public services. I mean, but this thing in the public school system here in Nevada, where the letter grade of F has been readily accepted, and then not only that, this social promotion thing. What is social emotional learning when they're not even teaching basic communication skills? Because people don't seem to like you when you share your concerns. And I don't like dysfunction. And that's my personal pet peeve. And it's not about me, no. It's about the regulations. I mean, we could all be at the table following along with what should be what should be going along. I mean, I can follow, the script as I know what's coming next. But the deal is that these people don't follow anything, no regulatory guidance. They just do what it is that they do. And they have chunks of money, a pot of money for this and a pot of money for this. And they feel that they have no obligation to explain that pot of money and how they used it. But, the unfortunate issue is that they've allowed people to set aside federal dollars and not utilize them and for the intended purposes. And so now they're finding out that you can't hold on to no federal money. No, it doesn't go. No, you don't get to do that. It's not like in the reserve because the services are not in the reserve. You get it? My people who look like me need to understand that they have choice in 2024. And we live in this global thing called the world. And globally, we are all able to do what? Access wherever you want to go. This AI, this worldwide technology, it just puts you wherever you want to be. And I'm going to be wherever I want to be. And so in the morning when I wake up, I go to cspan.org and I watch Washington Journal in the morning. And that way I get a good understanding of what America is thinking about, and then I watch some of the YouTube news. But when we have issues like George Floyd and Sonia Massey, I mean, this is continual. I mean, Stephen Clark. And I lived in Sacramento, so I know how the kids hop the fences at night just to get home because the police are roaming the streets and they feel that if you're out after a certain hour, that you're out there for no good. And it really doesn't matter because most likely you would be. But, I used to tell my children if I yelled for them to come home and they didn't hear me, that they get a whipping, and they did, but my mama whooped them. I didn't even have to be the one. And so, anyways, it is what it is. We are who we are, and you can be no more than what your journey has established you to be. And so, therefore, whatever will be, que sera, sera. But we do have an obligation to wake up in 2024. And as this podcast is worldwide, My podcast over there on Spotify is worldwide too. It's global. But the issues that I'm dealing with here in Nevada, I don't know if I'm the only one dealing with them. I don't know. I've filed more than one complaint. This complaint that was one, I did file this one, but I did file one against the state of Nevada. And it was accepted, but then they said I didn't appeal in time. I mean, but what am I appealing? I mean, they didn't give me a determination. What they told Nevada to do was make some changes, but when nobody from the state will respond to you, it's just like you don't live here. I mean, the State Department has a job to do, which is responsible for the local school sites. And the local school sites have been told by their governing boards that they didn't have to worry about the civil rights data. And they didn't have to worry about doing, the single plans for student achievement. And if you take that money, but let's hope you have the data that demonstrates that you gave everybody access, and then ask for your manifestation determination data when you're moving children. Look, there's something floating over me. You see that? There's nothing happening in this room. Maybe it's my mama, I don't know. But there's certainly something floating over me. The shadow. It's okay, I'm being protected by my mother. And that's just real because I have a roof over my head and it is paid for. And I've certainly been blessed and I understand that. And I have so much to give and understand it was my mother that made me able to advocate for my sons. And they are not in the penitentiary. We all struggle just being who we are because nobody wants to recognize. Everybody wants, I mean, this system of education and awards, I'll put it like that, means what to me? Because when I look at the system of services that are applied in our local community, I'm not satisfied with it. Are you? I mean, failure is readily accepted here. And they have an 88% population of Negro children in the juvenile facility. And one night, those children decided that they were going to escape and they had torches. And it reminded me of, one of those slave movies where black people were running with their torches in the middle of the night. That's what it reminded me. But, it's not like I hadn't seen it before, but I would have only seen it on television. Definitely not in my day of living. And then they've had so many instances of Black men throwing their babies out the window. Just one was an infant and one was 5 years old. And then there was an incident of a mother and a father that had abused a baby. And they showed that baby, and that baby had scars, and it had scars, and they put it all on television. And I'm just saying, is it serious? I mean, what about those 30, 60, 90-day checkups? And where's the medical profession? Because, we really should know what's going on in everybody's home because, the federal government in Sacramento, in Sacramento, I was forced to bring my children into for the checkups. And they had to have these exams in order to enter into public school. And I'm just saying, well, where is the community partnerships that I can't find? And I really can't find them because even under Child Fine is a federal regulation that allows all children to be assessed for language development. But at the age of 3, if your child is not talking, it's time for an intervention. And that's why you have this ability to partner with, local school districts, that's states do, to ensure that that happens. But when your local school districts don't collect that data, and then you hear people on the dais talking about they want to delay start of kindergarten until 9 years old. And I'm saying, oh, wow, 9, really? What's going to happen to you? And what do you really plan on doing? I have no idea. At the age of 9, you're starting kindergarten. And I'm saying, all right, well, let's just see the access data for all of the people. And you just be inclusive of everyone. Just put everybody out there and then we could just talk about it. And then you don't want to bring the data to the table. And I'm saying, oh, hell no. Because here in Nevada, we still have this thing called a cabaret tax. And what is a cabaret tax? Well, it's that tax that they provide for the performers on the strip. So if my Negro people ain't getting in here no other way except for on the strip and performing, where they all can make some money, except for when the tax dollars come back to the local community, you're not invited to the table. And I'm saying enough is truly just enough. And that's just real. I don't have to be invited to the table to understand what's being served. And every year, when the Black people who have been appointed to represent you and me, and you can't get a meeting with them because they ain't meeting with your ass, and that's real. Because you might know a little bit more than what they know, but it really doesn't matter. Because if they're not providing, look at that shadow over me. Oh yeah, I can see it. It's insane. But anyways, this room must be full. I might have to go and sage the room because I don't know what's here. But anyways, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the inability for public participation here in this Viva Las Vegas. Because quite frankly, you can't just volunteer and participate. And, as a Vista, I served in 2000, but, I was taking medication then, and I have changed my medication. And when I moved here to Vegas, it's the first time, I freely just smoke weed every day. I wake up and I'm not in pain like I was suffering in California because the pain management medication, oh, in 4 hours, you'd be in so much excruciating pain, you probably couldn't even think right. But here in Vegas, it's different. I do the CBD and the THC, and it's a combination, and I'm not debilitated, and I can think without, thinking about pain every day. But it really doesn't matter because I don't have to work, but I would like to work and I would like to continue to do what it is I do. I consider that some form of employment, but trying to get to the point to where you can get donations and we can be supported by your community. Well, who's choosing? They are. And they're choosing what you get to hear, and you don't always get to hear anything. And quite frankly, I've been on here for about 2 hours, almost 3 hours. I'm gonna stop at 3 because you can always fast forward to get to me and share. Please share. But the real deal is it really doesn't matter because we as a people have not been united for a very long time. And it's always about the house in the field. And I'm going to be out here. I'm just going to be. I'm going to be. I'm going to be. I'm going to be who I am going to be. And que sera, that is what the world brings. But my children were successful and failure is not an option. And so my youngest son, who they said would be mentally retarded, communication handicapped, just wouldn't benefit from public education, just happened to graduate with a one-on-one aid, laptop, and above proficient. And we recently got him into a training program for the state of Nevada. He's going to be working with DeWanna Malone on Nevada Help Desk. And my son is just brilliant. And all my children are gifted and brilliant. Actually, I have a 40-year-old, a 38-year-old, and a 27-year-old, and I'm 66. And I have a roof over my head. And for those of you who don't, and understand that, local people do things to people, and there's nothing you can do about it except for continue to survive and fight for your rights. And as an individual, I am fighting for the rights of so many African American children who have accepted the letter grade of F, which is unacceptable in America because it's not leading to a sustainable outcome out here in the ethos. And, the prison industrial complex is real, but when they can't, then they refuse to talk to you about the number of children who are actually at grade level, age appropriate grade level, that is. It's a conversation. And so, but you have a right to have it, and so do I. And I don't have to come any kind of way. I don't have to participate any kind of way. It's just the way I'm coming. And I think you should think about the failure and what's been accepted over time. But quite frankly, this is a new day with Kamala running for the president of the United States of America. And we'll see if we have Liz Cheney or another Republican on the ticket that's reasonable. But the mere fact that it is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, which gives me the right to be out here. And so until we meet again, I'll say, go back and listen to some of my shows. I have more than enough that are out here on YouTube. But then, and even Dick Gregory, I got to go see Dick Gregory, and you can go back and look in my, and my videos just to listen to what he said. And that was the first time I ever took the train to go anywhere by myself. But hey, we all need to wake up. We are living in this United States of America, and no matter where you are, it's our obligation to do what? Be heard. So stand and deliver in 2024. Y'all have a blessed day now. E purpose unum, out of many there's one, but out of one there may be none. What are you willing to do in the year of 2024? I say, Sharon, I say, oh wow, we just need to do what? Get it together. And so until we meet again, let's everybody pay attention, because the money, we're talking about the money and the data. And until you understand that it's hand in hand with our shared values, we won't show up, or we will show up in 2024. We'll see. Y'all have a